Hey, what's up? It's Cute What If this side. Today we will be seeing, what if Deku had a quirkless twin brother? Now before we move ahead with the fic, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future what ifs like this. It was the constant vibration going through his pillow that woke him up. Kano groaned lightly, blinking his eyes open groggily, and slid his free hand under his pillow and grabbed his phone. Pulling it out, he held it up in front of his face, swiping it on and blinking spots out of his eyes from the bright light illuminating the early morning darkness of his room. He frowned reading the text he'd received. 504 Izuku, sorry, can I speak to you? That and a bunch of buzzes every few seconds to make sure he was notified he got the message, and was woken up. It was hella early. What was his brother wanting at this time in the morning? Did it maybe have something to do with what he went through the other day with that sludge villain and Bakashity? Did he have a nightmare maybe? There was a light airy moan of displeasure to his side, and he felt the feminine body that his other arm was curled around shift slightly. It's way too early. Can you turn that off? His girlfriend whined in annoyance. Sorry, he apologized in a whisper. I'll be back in a bit. Just go back to sleep. He slipped his arm out from underneath her. She rolled over away from him, dragging the covers with her and wrapping herself up in a bunchy cocoon of black silk. Turning the screen of his phone off, he sat up on the edge of his double bed, suppressing a yawn as he did so. He scratched his bare chest idly and got up, making his way out of his room, clad in only a pair of white soccer shorts. He shut his room door quietly behind him as he stepped out into the hall. Everything was silent in the house except for some quiet shuffling he could hear originating from the kitchen, which had its lights on. Kano made his way over and entered the door, pausing just as he walked in and looked at his slightly younger twin brother. Odd, he was dressed in a green tracksuit and was busying himself at the sink washing some dishes. So he'd already eaten then, at this time. Weird, especially since his brother never wore any of the tracksuits for exercise he bought him. Getting his brother to work out with him was a mission and a half most of the time. He outright had to force him most of the time. He kept his social life separate from his now because of all the fights he used to get into to ward off bullies like Bakashity from Izuku. Making sure his brother was at least decently capable physically was the compromise he made with himself though. He had to make sure his brother could take care of himself even if only slightly if he wasn't going to be beating down everyone who bullied him for not having a quirk. What's up? Kano asked, one eyebrow raised. His brother must not have heard him because he yelped and dropped the bowl he was washing in the sink. Kano snorted. His brother was such a skittish guy, it would annoy him with anyone else, but his brother was a complete cinnamon roll, and he could never really muster even the urge to be angry with him about it. At least when he wasn't just sitting there and taking the abuse of others, that is. It annoyed the high hell out of him when he let complete fodder make fun of him for not having a quirk when literally all they could do was make their fingers longer, or make their eyeballs pop out, especially considering they were weak runts. Izuku at least was in decent shape from his efforts and knew how to throw a proper punch. He'd made sure of that. Don't do that, his brother stuttered slightly when he turned around. He bit his lip to stop himself from laughing and instead just bounced up a bit and sat on the kitchen counter. So what did you need me for at this god-awful time? Kano questioned. I was quite comfortable, with my comfy silk sheets and very naked girlfriend. A red flush spread across Izuku's face. That's exactly why I woke you with your phone. He turned his head slightly and poked his two index fingers together shyly. Last time I tried to wake you up I walked in on you both and she was completely naked. As soon as he said it, he dipped his head to the side slightly and hid his eyes from him with his frizzy hair. If it were any other guy seeing his girlfriend naked, he would crush them into paste with his quirk. But he just found it amusing how skittish and mortified his cinnamon roll of a brother was when he saw her naked in his bed. Plus, his brother was way too much of a nice guy and hero fanboy to even entertain the notion of perving on his brother's girlfriend, gorgeous or not. He laughed lightly and continued to do so even when his brother managed to muster up a glare at him. You're the only straight guy I know that would complain about seeing a girl that hot naked, he replied before waving his hand. But back on topic, what do you need to talk to me so badly about that you do it at this time? His brother's eyes lit up. Can I borrow some of your wrist and ankle weights? Izuku asked. Whoa, hold the phone. Despite his desire to become a hero, his brother only ever worked out his body when he himself forced him to. He'd never outright got on the ball himself despite his desire to be a hero. It was perhaps the one thing he couldn't stand about his brother. The sheer inferiority complex he had because he didn't have a quirk despite the fact that he could most likely beat the majority of the guys in his own class in a fight, quirk or no quirk. And there were many, many heroes with quirks that absolutely were no help as a hero yet were pro-heroes anyway. He wanted to know what lit a fire under his ass so bad. Was it the incident with the sludge villain like he thought? But what if he just made him skittish when asking and put him off it? His brother was quite fragile emotionally. If he was finally taking things seriously and working towards his goal, he didn't want to lessen his motivation in any way. There was only 10 months until the UA entrance exams, and he wasn't planning on going to UA himself. He was going to go to Shiksu with his girlfriend who was already a first year there. He looked at his brother's hopeful eyes and couldn't bring himself to dash his hopes in any way. Best not to ask any questions right now and just give him what he wanted. Sure I guess, he replied, feigning a deep yawn. I'm too tired to be curious why you suddenly want them. I was up quite late having a fun workout after all, if you catch my drift. He directed a lecherous smile at his brother and wiggled his eyebrows suggestively just to smash the point home. His brother's face practically exploded with heat. Kanai, he yelped, completely mortified. I'm so over this uniform, Kano commented to himself, buttoning up the black jacket of his Gakuren uniform and looking himself over in the large slide-open wall wardrobe mirror in his room. Seriously, he had enough people accusing of him being a delinquent because of all the fights he used to get into, and his uniform being the traditional delinquent uniform didn't help at all. Thank God this would be the last time he had to wear it. He frowned. Not that the UA uniforms were all that great either. He much preferred the Shiksu uniform, but that idea was a bust now. Well, whatever, he shook his head and turned away from the mirror and made his way over to the table housing the 3 computer screens on his desk. Opening one of the drawers of his desk, he grabbed the drone camera, clasping the microphone around his neck as he did so and tucking it beneath the collar of his uniform out of view. He held the drone camera up, lens towards him, and turned it on and began recording. Well, here we are guys, he said, lifting his hand up and clenching it into a fist. Today's the day I'll be heading to UA to take the entrance exams. It's gonna be great. I can't wait to actually cut loose a little with my quirk for once. Short, simple, and to the point. With that said, he quickly turned the camera off and slipped it into the backpack he had at the foot of his bed, it having already been used to store the clothes he'd be wearing during the entrance exam. He wasn't really like his brother. When he decided on becoming a hero, he'd gone out of his way to get everything he needed to make sure he could accomplish his goal. Whether that was seeking martial arts training or working part-time jobs to build himself up some money, he jumped right into it since before he was 10 years old. It was when he was 12 that he made a Web account and began filming his training towards becoming a hero to build himself up some popularity over the internet. The extra cash he raked in with the amount of views he got wasn't too bad either. Granted, they didn't really need the extra money living-wise. His dad, despite them never seeing them since he worked overseas, sent back a sizable amount of money each month. But he'd never say no to extra money, especially in the amount he got. Even more so considering he needed the money as a capital for his plans as a hero. He didn't want to work as a sidekick at another hero's agency. He didn't do well at taking orders. He planned on getting his own agency right off the bat after he graduated. Besides, society as a whole seemed to idolize powerful quirk users, and his quirk was practically destruction incarnate. When he showed off his quirk while training at the ocean, he began to get viewers in a landslide, especially when he ran into a certain pro hero there and got to spar with him a few times, on video. It helped that one of his sidekicks was a total babe. She brought in even more viewers on top of the excitement from his quirk and sparring with the pro. Looking at his watch, he clicked his tongue when he realized it was already 7:05, and he hadn't even had breakfast yet. He'd need to just grab something on the way. He hated using his quirk on an empty stomach. The backlash made him quite nauseous when he hadn't eaten anything. His brother had already left a good 10 minutes ago. He could hear him and his mother talking before he left. You're so cool, Izuku. He had to force himself to keep the sneer from his lips. How was he cool when he avoided him and couldn't look him in the eye? Resentment bubbled in him, but he forced it down. So what if he had to go to UA to keep an eye on him? That was his duty as his brother, wasn't it? He had to make sure he didn't overdo it right. Make sure he didn't outright destroy his body with that sudden quirk appearance of his. Even if his relationship practically imploded in on itself when he broke the news to his now ex-girlfriend. They didn't exactly part on bad terms, but they still broke up. There was just no way they could have a relationship with him going to UA and her going to Shiksu. Training to become heroes would take up a ton of their time regardless, going to different schools so far away from where they lived. UA was closer, and even then it was a good hour and a half drive from his house, an hour in the train. They'd have so little time with each other, there really wasn't any point in continuing their relationship. Kano heaved a deep sigh. It wasn't like he didn't understand his mother's worries. His brother had come home 2 months back and was so excited, telling them how his quirk had finally manifested. His mother had been horrified when Izuku told them how using it had broken his arm. She had never quite gotten over the terror of when he first unlocked his quirk and nearly died. She was terrified something like that would happen with Izuku, who didn't have the kind of physical training Kano himself had to make his body capable of withstanding his own quirk. Especially when Izuku was applying to become a hero and would need to use his quirk constantly. So yes, he understood why he had to go to UA and keep an eye on him. It didn't mean he had to like it though. If Izuku had only been like him and actively trained himself to become a hero instead of dwelling in self-pity about not having a quirk, this wouldn't be a problem. Making his way back over to the slide-open mirror wardrobe, he opened it and grabbed a stylish white bomber jacket with a gray underlayer and hood. It was a jacket that cost a pretty yen, but it was warm, stylish, and went with his favorite pair of boots that he wore wherever he went. A pair of reinforced white boots that reached midway to his knee, with 3 golden straps and golden trim at the base. They were made to handle bracing his feet against his quirk and surviving his use of it, not to mention they were stylish too. His brother favored green as his color. But while Kano thought the combination of black and red was cool, he figured white and gold together would be a pretty heroic image and pretty much made it his trademark color after he received some advice from one of the people he learned martial arts under. He'd taken it to heart since the man was a pro himself and knew what he was talking about. A big part of being a pro hero was advertising yourself after all. Zipping up his jacket, he slung his backpack over his shoulder and grabbed his wallet, plus the keys sitting on the table beside and exited his room. Thankfully his mother wasn't waiting for him in the hallway to wish him luck. For one, unlike his brother, he didn't need it. Secondly, he didn't really want to deal with the well wishes to get into a school he didn't even want to attend. "I'm leaving, Mom," he shouted as he opened the door, not bothering to wait for a reply before he shut it behind himself and left. The brisk morning air felt good against his skin and helped calm him down a bit. He quickly made his way down the stairs of the apartment building, and after exiting it he made his way to the car park and made a beeline for his precious mode of transportation. His lips quirked up. He'd only had it for a few months now, but it never failed to lift his mood so far when he rode it. A gleaming white two-seater Suzuki Hayabusa. The lights were a golden yellow and it had a golden trim design darting over the sides, along with the seats being gold-colored as well. It had been quite a steep buy, especially since it was the newest on the market, but honestly it cost less than a full 3 years of getting the train to UA and back again each day. And he got a good deal on it thanks to his sensei, so it was pretty much saving money in the long run as far as he was concerned. Putting his keys in, he turned it on and opened the back seat storage compartment, grabbing one of the 2 golden safety helmets and sliding it on. Then he revved the engine and drove off. He pulled to a stop a good near 30 minutes later in front of a local store. According to his bike's GPS, he was a bit over halfway there, so he figured now was as good a time as any to grab something to eat. He figured he'd just grab a few bottles of water and a couple bento, one to eat now and one for after his exam. He'd always been a bit of heavy eater after he unlocked his quirk. It took a bit of energy to use, and when he training his body up he'd been recommended to eat quite a bit for a high-calorie intake so he could bulk up and get a sturdier build. Making his way in, he quickly made his way to where he could see the refrigerated goods up the back of the decently large store. He grabbed 3 bottles of water and decided to go with 3 bento just in case he was hungrier than expected after the exam, then began making his way to the counter. He paused for a moment at a part of the store dedicated to body care, shampoo, toothpaste and the works, his eyes lingering on the stack of condom boxes. He was running low since he hadn't stocked up on them in months, but he shook his head. It didn't really matter now, did it? He didn't have a girlfriend to use them with anymore. Making his way to the counter, he ended up at the back of a line 3 people long. Just before him in the line was a girl around his age, small and quite petite with shoulder-length brown hair styled into a short bob at the back. He idly let his eyes roam over her back but was disappointed that she wore a thick brown coat that came down to just below her waist and covered a good half of the black skirt she was wearing, hiding her figure from his eyes. Even her legs were covered with some tights, and the white bag she carried obscured his view of them as well. How unfortunate. Oh well. While he waited, he pondered on just how much of his quirk he should use during the entrance exam. He couldn't really go all out with it. If he did, anyone that was anywhere near him would probably get caught up in it and injured. His quirk wasn't one that could be controlled well. The most he could do was minimize the volume by focusing it around his fists and feet, and even then he had to keep it compressed tightly or he'd cause a lot of destruction. It wasn't easy having a quirk like his. Oh, the power was amazing, but unlike others he couldn't really just use it willy-nilly. It was a pain in the ass, because just like every other quirk, it was a part of him and he got antsy when he spent too much time without using it. Ah, no way. The girl in front of him, now at the counter, whined, waving one of her arms in annoyance. I can't believe I counted wrong. Her voice was bubbly sounding and kinda cute. Is there something wrong, miss? The cashier asked. In front of him on the counter was a collection of food, some matcha as well as vegetables, some meat and such. No, sorry for the hold up, I just have to put something back. No biggie, the girl rushed to explain. She obviously didn't have enough with her to buy all that she wanted and was quite embarrassed about it. Moo. She let out a little sigh of defeat. Definitely a cute voice. And a Kansai accent on top of that. Double the cuteness. Taking pity on her, Kano grabbed his wallet from his pocket and walked up to her side. Here, why don't I spot you the difference? He cut in. Helping people was a hero's duty, and in his opinion especially a girl as cute sounding as this. She turned to look at him and he finally got a good look at her face. 2 long brown bangs framed a round, slightly chubby-cheeked face. Lovely large brown eyes peered up at him over blush-mark-stained cheeks. She didn't have the kind of sexy coy and pouty looks his last girlfriend did, but she was definitely very cute. It went really well with her height since now that he was beside her he noticed she barely reached his chin if that. She waved her free hand quite erratically. No, it's fine. I don't want to be a bother or anything. He rolled his eyes slightly. It's fine, I've got more than enough money for myself. Kano replied. How much are you short? She twiddled her hand in an embarrassed fashion before lowering her face in defeat. 1,200 yen. Opening his wallet, he grabbed the specified amount and placed it on the counter. He then smiled at the girl and patted her on the head as made his way back behind her to his space in the line. There, see. No need to worry. She ducked her head in a remarkably similar way to his brother, face practically steaming from the casual contact. He kind of overstepped his bounds there. Being around his ex so long had made him much more casual when touching others. That girl had no problem invading personal space, and it rubbed off on him, it seemed. The cashier quickly bagged her purchases once he put the money away and handed over the bag to the girl. She stepped out of the line, and when I stepped up to the counter myself, she bowed straight at the waist, face still a flaming red. Thank you so much, she stammered. Kano waved her off. It's fine, he replied casually with a smile. I couldn't leave a cute girl like you hanging now, could I? Even while replying to her, he casually handed over the exact money for his own purchase, and waved the man off when he offered him a bag. He'd just keep them in the storage compartment of his bike. He couldn't be bothered breaking a large note for a freaking 1 yen. He stepped out of the line with his purchases, and she fell in step with him as he walked towards the exit. She breathed deeply and the flush slowly faded from her face. Curiously though, the cute little blush marks on her cheeks remained. Still, you really helped me out a bunch. Now I don't need to put anything back, she told him chirpily. He had to stop himself from rolling his eyes. There was a limit to gratitude for something so minor. Like I said, it's fine, you don't need to keep thanking me, he said to her. By the way, my name's Kano Midoriya, just to get introductions out of the way. He supposed he could at least try to get her number out of it. It probably wouldn't lead anywhere, but he'd always got along better with girls than guys. Mostly because very few girls ever bullied his brother, and he'd never needed to beat the crap out of any, unlike the legions of boys he had. Bakashitty at the very top of that list. He'd lost count how many times he'd beat his volatile, exploding ass into the ground. Granted, that asshole was the closest thing he got to a real fight outside of his sensei and his buddy on the ocean. Kicking him around was definitely a good stress reliever. I'm Ochako Uraraka, nice to meet you. She introduced herself as they passed the exit and reached the streets. His bike was just a few feet from him, parked right in front of the entrance, and he quickly stepped over and slipped his keys in and opened the storage compartment, grabbing his helmet and slipping his purchases inside. Whoa, that's a nice bike, Ochako commented, stepping up beside him and looking it over. How old are you if you've already got a license for one of these? She realized what she asked a moment later and promptly slapped her hands over her mouth as if she'd committed some great sin by asking his age. He snorted a bit in amusement. I'm only 15, he replied. Heroes and hero hopefuls got a lot of benefits in society, one of those being the ability to get driving licenses and such early if they proved responsible and skilled enough to use them properly. Hell, according to his sensei at hero schools, most were taught how to pilot helicopters in their first year and got a license for piloting them if they passed the test. Ochako clapped her hands, excitement beaming on her face. Oh, does that mean you're going to a hero school? She asked. Kind of, he said, smiling. I'm heading over to UA for the entrance exam after here. That's so cool. The brown-haired girl chirped happily. So am I. Oh ho. This cute girl could actually be one of his future classmates if she was good enough to pass. She must be taking the train there, he assumed, since she already seemed fully dressed in a school uniform if the tights and black skirt were anything to go by. Well, I've got another helmet if you want to hitch a ride with me, he offered. Ochako Uraraka had to admit that this was a first for her. Sitting on the back seat of a motorcycle behind a boy she had just met, she kept her hands clasped lightly over his shoulders but made sure to keep herself from pressing up against him. She wasn't fully confident in her balance if it came to just holding the grips of the seat she was on. If she ended up startled and almost fell, she might just activate her quirk on a massive pileup of crashing cars, was so not what she needed today. Or ever actually. This wasn't something she'd usually partake in either. But he was nice, if a bit flirty for her tastes, and he'd offered to give her a lift to UA. She tended to kind of wall off any of the few flirty types that she caught the attention of. They kind of wigged her out. It helped though that the bit of flirting he'd done wasn't really full-on hitting on her. It seemed more like something born out of interacting with girls a lot. Plus, the more money she saved the better. Her funds were tight enough as it was, so she'd accepted his offer despite the mild embarrassment she felt. The less she used her rail card to get around, the better. It would give her a few extra rides on her card before she had to replace it, saving her a bit of yen. She had to admit as well though, that this was a nice bike. She toyed with the idea of going for her driving license herself, especially since a cheap car would be cheaper in the long run than taking trains to school every morning and back again for 3 years. But the money needed for the exam and license, then to pay for even a cheap car, was just too much for her family to pay at once. She and her family weren't doing so swell in the money department after all. The construction company owned by her parents rarely got any work in these days, and they struggled to save any money up before they had to pay it all out. She wondered though how he had his license before he had even been accepted into a hero academy. As far as she knew, that kind of thing wasn't really possible without someone putting a good word in for you, and that usually meant a successful pro hero who could vouch for the applicant's potential and such. Achako was a bit jealous that he could so casually afford a bike like this one, if the designer jacket he was wearing was anything to go by. She fisted her hand slightly tighter against his shoulders. That just lit a fire in her belly though. All she had to do was pass the exams today and she'd be well on her way to becoming a famous pro, and getting all the money she needed to give her parents the comfortable life they deserved. So what department are you applying for? Kano's voice echoing loudly over the steady thrum of the bike's engine roused her from her thoughts. She noticed the bike slowing down to a stop and traffic lights shining red in front of them. The hero department, she replied, raising her voice and sliding up the golden visor of her helmet. What about you? Me too, he shouted back, looking over his shoulder at her, his own visor already slid up and flashing her a smile before it slipped into a bit of a grimace. My quirk isn't really suited to anything outside of fighting after all. She tried not to look into his eyes too long. She wasn't really interested in looks all that much. His eyes, though, were a completely different story. She wished she had eyes like those. No boy should have eyes that pretty. Achako didn't even know eyes that vibrantly green could exist. They were like glistening, vibrant emerald jewels. Definitely way more beautiful than her own ruddy brown eyes. So not fair. But they were dimming right now and he looked a bit annoyed and put out about his quirk. It should be a crime for emotion to dim those eyes down. Still, she shook her head. It wasn't like Achako couldn't understand his gripe with his quirk. Her own quirk wasn't really all that great for combat situations and was much more suited to a rescue hero. It didn't really bother her too much, since she wanted to be a rescue hero like 13 anyway, but the more popular heroes were the stronger ones and they made more money. The most popular by far though were the strongest heroes who could also rescue people even after beating villains down, like All Might, or Hawks. So he was pretty much on the other side of the spectrum from her. And he seemed kind of a bit bummed out by that fact. They both fell silent for a few seconds and he turned his head back towards the traffic lights. She should say something right. Mine's the opposite, to be honest. Her accent slipped in a bit as she spoke up. My quirk's called zero gravity, and it lets me remove the weight of anything I touch if I want. It's not really all that great for a fight though. She didn't have any training to compensate for that either. She couldn't really afford to learn a martial art. Even the beginner classes cost a decent amount of yen. All Achako had been able to do to mitigate her combat weakness even slightly was working out to get herself into good shape, mostly by jogging every morning, and installing a few cheap pieces of exercise equipment like a pull-up bar in her room. That, and whatever small tricks she could come up with for her quirk. Nice, that's a pretty awesome quirk, Kano noted with a whistle. It's pretty much tailor-made for a rescue hero. Definitely a quirk worthy of a pro. Achako smiled at the praise and leaned forward, patting him on the back as if to pass on the burden of sharing their quirks. What about you? She asked. He glanced up at the traffic lights again, making sure they were still red before he took one hand off of the handlebars of the motorcycle and pointed one finger into the air, just high enough for her to see over his shoulder. Mine's called Power Quake, he said. There was a kind of clash of sound between something vibrating and a high-pitched echoing pop followed by a small transparent and whitish sphere of, she wasn't really sure what to call it, something forming around the tip of his finger. It looked kind of like the very air itself was twisting and fracturing within it. Pretty, she thought. The sphere flickered between different shades of white in an almost mesmerizing way. And the feeling in the air, just from that small sphere over his fingertip, it felt like the air around them was vibrating. She had to make a conscious effort to stop her teeth from chattering together. Achako understood though why his quirk was only good for fighting now. If even that tiny little sphere no bigger than the tip of his finger caused the air to vibrate so hard around them, then what must it feel like if he made one much bigger, like the size of someone's head? You can feel the tremors through the air, right? He asked, looking over his shoulder at her again. Achako nodded. Boy, could she feel it. Yep. I can't believe such a little thing like that is causing that much vibration though. Yeah, that's the problem. See, that's only the after effects of my quirk. Wait, what? Just an after effect for something that's strong, not really the full effect. He continued on, ignorant of her thoughts. See, my quirk when activated causes the area it covers to constantly push and pull every single tiny part of it, and each motion bounces off of each other and amplifies those around it, making them push and pull all that harder in a kind of loop effect. It's like the power of an earthquake focused in a tiny area, and I can use it from any part of my body. Kano lifted his other hand and clamped it around the fingertip, a hiss of pain leaving his mouth as he crushed the sphere out of existence. That was as small as I could make it, and it would probably tear a car apart if I hit one with it. He grimaced. The kickback I get from using it isn't very pleasant either. I almost died when I first activated it. Oh gosh, no wonder he couldn't really use it for anything other than fighting, Achako thought. Heck, if that tiny little sphere could have torn apart a car, what about one the size of his hand like I thought of before? It would probably tear apart a building. Even fighting with it without causing too much damage was probably really hard to do. And if even that little sphere hurt him to just power up and not even use, then how much must it hurt to use more? Achako was a bit glad the only kickback from her own quirk was the nausea she got if she went over her 3-ton weight limit or removed her own gravity for an extended period of time. She couldn't really imagine going through pain like that for something she used constantly like she did her quirk. Sometimes she even used it in her sleep when she wasn't wearing her mittens. She patted him on the back again comfortingly, an awkward smile on her face. At least it's super powerful, right? Kano's eyes lit up a bit and he chuckled. There is that at least, he conceded. The traffic light above them flashed yellow, then green. Hold on tight, we're off again, he told her. Ochako quickly pulled her hand from his shoulder, slipping her visor back down over her eyes and gripped his shoulder again, this time a bit more tightly. Then the sound of rubber on asphalt rang and he drove forward, quickly picking up speed. She grinned in excitement as butterflies rose in her belly. She quite liked the speed the bike went at and the way the wind blew over her face. Thank God for the helmet she was wearing though, or her hair would be messed up so bad. A total bird's nest. That would be all she needed, a bad hair day during her attempt to get into the most prestigious hero school in the country. With the tension more or less broken between them, conversation flowed between them much easier. She learned that he actually had a younger twin brother who was also taking the entrance exam with them today. That he surprisingly enough had a decently popular following on YouTube as he documented his training progress on the route to become a hero, and that he'd actually bought the motorcycle they were riding on with the money he made from it. She wished she could have done something like that, but she didn't even have a computer and her cell phone was a cheap flip one on top of that. But geez, this guy's a real go-getter type, isn't he? She thought. In turn, she ended up telling him about the limits on her quirk, and how she was actually living alone at the moment in an apartment her parents got her for free since they actually built the apartment building. That she was doing so because she originally lived quite a bit a ways and her new apartment was much closer to UA. She told him that her favorite food was matcha and he ended up laughing, pointing out that he kind of figured that out with how much of it she had bought back at the store they met in. Hey, Ochako pouted at his laughing and playfully thumped him on the back with one hand while making sure to maintain her balance on the bike. Matcha is great, and really cheap too. It had been something she picked up at a young age. It was very cheap and just one little piece the size of a small matchbox was as filling as an entire bowl of rice. She loved the taste and texture of it in her mouth too, so it was a win-win for her. Stocking up on matcha tended to save her a lot of money. I didn't say there was anything wrong it, Kano chuckled. Personally my favorite is kebab meat and chili sauce. I had to eat a lot of meat and stuff like that for a high calorie intake when I was younger so I could bulk up and make my quirk easier on my body. She could certainly attest that he'd done a good job. She felt like she thumped a brick wall instead of a person's back just there. Really, kebab? Ochako snorted, and covered in chili sauce at that. That's so weird. At least matcha is a Japanese food. It definitely explained why he had bought 3 bentos that focused on meat though. Once again though, so not fair. This guy was going to eat 3 bentos by himself and it would help him maintain a rigid body of powerful muscle. If she ate 3 bentos it'd go straight to her hips, and her hips were already too thick in her opinion. The other girls she knew at her old school had much more slender hips than her, just so not fair at all. If it weren't for how little she actually ate and the jogging she did every day, she had no doubt she'd be a complete and utter natural chubster. Hey, don't bash on the kebab, I love that stuff, he jokingly rebuked. Besides, it's really filling and feels good in my stomach. One of the better things I've eaten before using my quirk. Let me tell you, using it on an empty stomach gives me some annoying nausea to deal with, as if the pain wasn't bad enough already. Ochako grimaced. Ah, that sucks. She was sympathetic with that plight. She knew how much of annoyance quirk-based nausea was. She'd become an old friend with throwing up long ago thanks to her own inborn ability. Will you be fine for the exam? She didn't really know what the exam would entail. All she really knew from the hints and letters she received was that this year the entrance exam was going to have a much bigger focus on combat ability. She tightened her hands on his shoulders a bit more when he sped up a bit and passed through 2 cars in front of them seamlessly. Nah, the exam shouldn't be a problem, he replied. Voice carried on the wind rushing over them. She had to admire his skill when driving. He made it look easy. From what my sensei tells me, we'll just be up against a bunch of robots called villain bots. Big and fast, but not really too much of a threat. Each one gives a set amount of points and the more you destroy the higher your score rises, and the top scorers get in. Ah, really? Ochako demanded frantically. No doubt about it then, his sensei must be a pro of some kind. That must be where he got the recommendation for this motorcycle of his. Still, big robots that could be really bad for her. Don't worry so much, he replied easily. We get like 10 minutes to rack up points and we can use any equipment we brought with us to help augment our fighting skills. With your quirk all you've got to do is touch them once and you should be able to bring them down without too much trouble. I'd still have to get in close though. She bit her lip slightly. She wasn't the fastest person around. As far as running speed went, she was pretty average. No, it didn't matter. She'd just throw everything she had into it and chase those robots down like a wolf hunting a rabbit. And she at least knew in advance what to expect so there wouldn't be any surprises to slow her down. Yeah, she could totally do this. Fired up, she lifted her hands from his shoulders and punched her right hand into her left palm. Yeah, I'm gonna crush them. Ochako agreed with him loudly and vehemently. Then she wobbled slightly and realized she'd taken her hands off of what she was using to balance herself on the bike. Ack. she spluttered, quickly throwing herself forward and gripping his back tightly before she fell off. Kano just snorted in amusement. Ugh, Kano groaned, standing over a sink in the changing room's toilet. That was brutal. The theoretical exam was something else. So many damn laws and regulations that were need to know, on top of a typical high-flyer high school entrance exam. Not fun at all. But now that he was done and had a few minutes to himself before he had to head out, he could focus on what had been bothering him since he parted ways with Ochako this morning after arriving at the school. It was mainly because of the discomfort he noticed Ochako showing on her face when he reflexively flirted with her that he noticed how unlike himself he'd managed to become. How much of himself he'd hidden away. It couldn't be helped really. He literally hadn't outright talked with anyone besides teachers, his sensei and his mother since the breakup with his girlfriend. He hadn't even spoken with his brother since then either. It was a reflex born from his time socializing with people Kami wanted to hang out with. Standing in front of one of the bathroom mirrors inside a UA changing room, Kano gave himself a once-over. And he had to admit, he did look good. He kept his boots, but changed out the black Gakurin uniform for a pair of black gi pants tied at the waist with a golden sash that dangled by his left thigh. Up top he wore a simple, sleeveless white zip-up hoodie with golden zips on the front, and pockets that left his well-muscled arms on full display. The black color of his pants really made the white and gold pop out all the more. His hair, so different from his brother's frizzy mess, fell in cascading waves of spiky greenish black. His skin, tanned and lacking the freckles his twin had on his cheeks, and to top it all off, a bright, inviting smile. It looked fine on him, hell it looked great. But it just wasn't really him. So fake, he glared at himself in the mirror, a sneer replacing his smile. He spent so much time with Kami and faking that inviting persona for the people she dragged him around to hang out with, that it had become second nature to him. When did that All Might ripoff replace the cutting smirk he'd practically patented from a young age? He didn't have to play the inviting gentleman around his girlfriend's clique anymore. Also, she had no real social problems with him as a boyfriend with his prior and well-deserved reputation. And all. He hadn't minded playing the part too much. Not with the way she rewarded him. What bothered him was how he was just now realizing how much he'd been holding himself back. That irritated him. Holding back was something he had to do constantly with his quirk, always suppressing a massive part of himself so he didn't destroy everything around him. And there he was willingly binding himself even further just for a girl. He snorted, a small amused smile flashing at him through the mirror. How pathetic, he chuckled. It wasn't even that he didn't like talking to people, and he definitely enjoyed his time with Ochako. But it was the way he did it. He was always biting his tongue to stop the more caustic parts of his personality from showing. Always smiling as if everything was fine, a constant, blinding smile on his face. It had become like second nature to stop himself from outright calling Kami's friends annoying airheads or snapping at them. Kami had been the queen bee type, even the way she talked reflected the constant time she spent on social messenger systems. All her friends were popular, catty girls who were always giggling over some boy or insulting someone for something that was just so utterly childish. The social skills he picked up with her would no doubt be a boon when dealing with the public when he became a hero, and it did wonders for his popularity on WebTube. But he had to balance it more. He wouldn't allow himself to flash that same dumb smile, as All Might. Kano sighed. She hadn't spoken to him in over 2 months now. He couldn't exactly blame her, mind you. He'd pretty much outright chose his brother over her, giving up the chance at making their future as a couple work just so he could keep an eye on him. And as usual, it always came back to his brother. A sneer pulled back over his lips and he bared his teeth angrily at his reflection. And with him, it always comes back to All Might. Kano snarled mentally, eyes flashing with barely suppressed rage. All Might, All Might, All Might. He was sick of hearing about that guy. For over 10 years all his brother would talk about was that goddamn fake smiling bastard. It pissed him off that nobody but he could apparently see how damn fake the smile that was constantly plastered across the number one hero's face really was. Just as fake as the one he wore to please Kami's friends for her. He'd gotten his curiosity and wondering what got his brother so motivated to train, answered. That day 10 months ago, when his brother and Bakushity were attacked by that sludge villain, All Might had apparently been impressed by him and told his brother, "You can be a hero." His fists glowed with a blinding white power, his quirk threatening to explode into existence. He ground his teeth and forced the power to disperse before he destroyed the entire bathroom. Since the very moment his brother was told he didn't have a quirk and yearned for confirmation that he could become a hero regardless, he'd been there every step of the way, and day in, day out he'd told him he could be a hero. But it never stuck, not once, no matter how hard he tried. It didn't matter how strong he got. It didn't matter how many bullies he beat down. It didn't matter how many ways he showed his brother how he could be a hero without a quirk. It didn't matter that he even outright almost got expelled for punching out a teacher who mocked Izuku for being quirkless. Not once did his brother believe in him. But All Might told him once that he could do it, and set a fire under his brother so hot that he trained every single day for 10 months. To points where he came home half dead, vomiting through the night from muscle cramps and fatigue. What was the freaking point of it all, if all his efforts were just going to get completely ignored and be completely unappreciated? If he had that zeal for training, why hadn't he done anything sooner? Why had he just squandered his time all those years moping about not having a quirk? It wasn't fair. He had a recommendation for Shiksu. He had met teachers in advance, actively convinced them to bend their little no-dating rule in regards to him and Kami because they were going to become a pro team together. He'd freaking paid a deposit for one of their larger dorm rooms that he didn't get back. All that effort wasted, and his girlfriend along with it. And his pathetic brother wouldn't even look him in the goddamn eyes. He used to find his brother's skittishness adorable. Now he was just plain disgusted with him. He needed to man up a lot. He forced himself to calm down and turned away from the mirror. He didn't have the time to just sit in here letting his thoughts rage around. It was time for the practical exam. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out his camera drone and turned it on, letting it float gently into the air. Turning, he began making his way out of the building and made towards the bus that would take him to the designated exam area, the drone following behind him. The microphone around his neck worked as a sort of beacon to it, and it would follow the signal of it, recording all the way. It took him a good 20 minutes all in after he reached the bus, for them to arrive in front of a boarded-off miniature city where a bunch of people, hundreds easily, were waiting, many restlessly moving about and anxiously staring at the large closed gate at the front of the city. Battle Center E. Good, Kano thought to himself when he scanned the crowd as he walked through them. He saw nobody he wouldn't mind not being able to pass so he could nab all the villain bots to himself. Admittedly, at this point, the only ones he'd feel bad about doing that to were the nice, bubbly girl Achako he met earlier. And his brother. Possibly. Achako was a nice girl, rather interesting too. Nice, energetic and kind of funny to watch and listen to. But above all else, he got this kind of warm vibe from her that made him keep up the kind attitude with her on. It hadn't been a reflex either, he'd literally wanted to be that kind person with her, so unlike those other girls. He'd feel like he kicked a puppy if he got in her way and made it harder for her. He hadn't seen her since they arrived at UA. She'd been quick to thank him and move on, wishing him luck and hoping she'd see him later. She had wanted to be punctual and make a good impression apparently, so went on ahead while he ate one of the bento he bought. And he hadn't seen her during the orientation since he was stuck in the seating section for those from his middle school. Hopefully she did well enough to pass. At least if she did, he'd have one possible classmate that wouldn't annoy the shit out of him. Knowing his luck, he was going to end up in a damn class with both his brother and Bakashiti. Also, it was probably for the best he knew that he'd be separated from his brother in the exam. UA tried to do its best to keep people who knew each other from the beginning teaming up in the entrance exams. He couldn't be sure he wouldn't be vindictive enough at the moment to stop himself from really making his brother work for it. He was excited for one thing about this test though. They were told to go all out by Present Mike, go wild and hold nothing back. They didn't have to worry about collateral damage at all. The only thing not allowed was interfering with another examiner. Kano smirked, bodily pushing through the crowd until he got to the very front. He could let loose some wanton destruction. That would be real good stress relief. The feeling of letting his quirk free and not having to hold back at all. For once he could fully relax and let down all the walls he constantly forced his power back with. They wouldn't know where the villain bots would be hiding. The objective was to draw them out and destroy them. But that's far too tedious for me, the older twin thought to himself. Someone tried to push him back but he barely paid them a glance and a simple nudge with his shoulder had them falling on their ass. He didn't even bother taking in their looks. The gate swung open a minute or so later, and Present Mike's voice rang out all around them. His smirk grew. Time to have some fun. Faster than any of the other examinees could react, he stepped through the gate and swung his fist. With a sound like glass shattering, a white crack appeared in the air before him where his fist struck. Then a massive wave of force exploded outwards, enveloping the first block of the city, passing over the towering buildings in less than 3 seconds and reducing everything it touched to pieces. Screams of shock and terror resounded out, hundreds of them and all behind him. But he didn't care, and even as the very ground itself tremored with an unrelenting force, and the buildings exploded apart in massive chunks of raining debris, Kano pushed forward into the city. Twin spheres of white light appeared around his feet and he pushed off at a blindingly fast speed, not even sparing a glance as the ground he previously stood on ruptured and left behind a body-sized crater from the sheer force of his takeoff. Can he do that? Midnight asked, wincing as she looked up at a large room-spanning screen, and the scene being projected on it. Asphalt torn asunder, towering buildings raining down in chunks of debris. And of course, who could forget the absolutely trashed scraps of green metal that were once villain robots? No rule against it, Vlad grunted, a frown on his face as he watched Kano take a massive leap through the chaos he caused with one punch, not even taking a moment to assess the damage he did or even admire his own sheer power. Instead he plowed through the rain of ruins and came down at the end of the block, just in time to catch a speeding three-pointer with a simple punch as easily as breathing it looked to the kid and tore through the green villain robot like paper mash. How many points has he got already? He asked, turning his head to the right to look at the scruffy dark-haired man standing by his side. Aizawa grunted, 37 with that three-pointer he just took out, with his lips pursed into a frown. The Erasure hero paid very close attention to the incredibly destructive hero candidate. That was an above-average passing score already. But it was to be expected of a boy who could demolish an entire street block with one punch. The villain robots were set up in buildings all over the test site city. Hundreds of each, and there were usually 2 or 3 per building in the first block alone to catch candidates off guard quickly. How impressive! It hasn't even been 30 seconds yet on the clock, Principal Nezu chirped in, leaning comfortably back in his chair and taking a sip of his tea. He turned to look at Aizawa himself. You must be quite proud. If it weren't for you, he quite possibly would have died before he got strong enough to actually endure his quirk. Oh, that's the brat you helped out that got you into teaching? Vlad asked in interest. Aizawa grunted again in answer. He looked down at the screen just in time to see Kano lash out with his leg in a forward kick, his leg clad tightly in a tightly compressed white bubble. As soon as he finished the motion, the bubble launched itself down the road in a shape reminiscent of a crescent blade, cutting both the road and the 2-pointer he was aiming at in half. TCH, he clicked his tongue. This brat, abusing the loopholes to rampage to his heart's content. Once upon a time, he had gotten a request from the Hero Association to oversee the conditioning of some brat who'd nearly died upon activating his quirk. He'd been paid quite handsomely to watch over him at all times so that he could erase his quirk if it began to hurt him too badly again, and help train the boy to condition his body enough to the point where he could endure his quirk enough on his own to go back to his everyday life. He'd initially spent 3 months with the brat in this very school, overseeing him alongside Recovery Girl. Along the way, he'd even taught the brat the basics of his own combat style to work as a base for him to learn from as he grew up, so that he didn't have to rely on such a quirk, especially when the boy despised it himself. Somehow, he'd become fond of the kid and come to like teaching him, so at the advice of his friend of many years, he'd taken up a teaching position at UA. He hadn't expected the kid's body to grow so tough so quickly, even at that age. Truly, his physical growth rate was absurd. It hadn't taken him long to understand why the association had been interested in him from the get-go of his quirk manifesting. That was 10 years ago. He was peculiar, even as a child, Recovery Girl herself commented. His body adapted to the physical training he was put through rapidly, and his physical abilities grew even then to the point that without using his quirk, you'd think he had a superhuman one regardless. Yeah, that had thrown Aizawa himself off. Whether it was endurance or strength training, his body adapted and grew quickly. Even martial arts were quickly and efficiently molded into his muscle memory. Not only that, the short old lady continued, for the life of me, I can't understand how he survived the awakening of his quirk. He broke near every bone in his body and even his organs had been damaged quite badly. The only conclusion I could make is that his quirk isn't merely something used for destruction, or that it somehow pushed his body into overdrive and ramped up his body's natural healing rate just to live. Young Midoriya. All Might should have been watching the screen his young successor was being displayed on, and he was, but most of his attention had been stolen by that of the young man's older twin brother and the devastation he wrought. I see, having to grow up in the shadow of one like this, it's no wonder your belief in yourself was practically non-existent. Few quirks alone could unleash such destruction with a single swing of a fist. Such a blow could probably even stagger him. Even young Midoriya's frankly hero-worshipping, incredibly detailed explanation on his brother's quirk understated the sheer power the boy wielded. Then again, it was unlikely young Midoriya had ever been around the boy at a point where he could unleash his quirk so massively before. His eyes drifted to the screen displaying his young successor just in time to see him jump up and kick off of a lamp post to boost himself above a one-pointer, and drop a heel kick atop its head and cave it in, bringing him to 7 points, arcs of green electricity sparking around his body. Young Midoriya's own take on using one for all as best as he could currently. Full cowling, with a maximum of 5% power. It had been a couple of months now since he'd passed his quirk onto the boy, and he'd finally begun to make progress. It was lucky the boy already a good physical foundation and the basics of fighting drilled into him by his brother growing up despite his lack of belief in himself. It was not perfect, but it would be enough, that he was sure of. Odd though, he was sure young Midoriya had told him in length about how the boy had planned to go attend Shiksu Hero Academy with a girlfriend or something like that. Though now that he thought about it, while in the beginning his successor had talked about his older brother a lot, in the last few months the boy had barely mentioned him. Annoying brat, Aizawa groused. What was all that crap about asking me to help get you into the recommendation test for Shiksu if you were just going to come here anyway? Speak of the devil, it seemed even Aizawa knew of the boy's plans initially, and no idea why he was currently taking the normal entrance exam at UA. All Might glanced back at the screen showing off Kano Midoriya and winced as he punted a 3-pointer at a 2-pointer a few meters away, and destroyed them both in a metal-crunching collision. Such monstrous physical ability too, All Might thought. Even with full cowling, young Midoriya wasn't up to par with his brother's physical abilities, never mind taking his quirk into account. Actually on the topic of Shiksu, Principal Nezu rapped his furry chin. Something odd came about with them lately in the last few days. I was very surprised. Aizawa grunted, turning his attention to the principal along with the others. Their top first-year student from last year. She's requesting a transfer, oddly enough. Principal Nezu replied. She wants to join UA this year. A young girl with an illusion-type quirk. Kami is her name. Kami. Where have I heard that name before? All Might tapped his chin, before dismissing it. It would probably come to him later when he was having a good soak in the sub to relax his muscles. Kami, huh? Aizawa mused, before clicking his tongue. Looks like another problem child is joining this school. Lovely, just what we needed. Oh ho, it seemed Aizawa knew who she was. She must have been a really impressive student if even he cared to keep track of her. Well, all might suppose there was a reason Shiksu was called the UA of the West. This ... was a lot more boring than he thought it was going to be. Unleashing that first attack had been amazing. It was rare he ever got the chance to unleash such an attack, especially above water. To train his quirk, he had to go places where he couldn't do a lot of damage. His place of choice being the ocean. There he could dive underwater and unleash his quirk without destroying anything ... much. Initially he'd nearly did some damage to some fishing spots, before he was stopped by a local hero who worked on the ocean. The hero had thankfully been very understanding and showed him a place not far from the port where he could let loose a bit. He sparred with the hero quite a bit when he was free nowadays. He was a big tough guy who was an expert at fighting underwater after all. Here and now though, Kano had to hold back again after unleashing his first attack. Because now all the other examinees were in amongst the testing grounds. As such he couldn't be demolishing entire buildings and streets with his quirk anymore lest he want to crush others. Honestly, after the first punch ... the exam turned boring. This sucks, Kano thought, even as he flashed a thumbs up at the drone he had monitoring him from above while he held a two-pointer up above his head with his other hand. No. A sharp scream of denial sounded behind him. I thought I got the right button, so why is it still going? Curious, Kano looked over his shoulder just in time to catch sight of a three-pointer chasing after a floating pair of shorts and tank top. A floating pair of shorts and tank top stained with sweat that looked like they were practically painted on a rather voluptuous figured body. He could practically make out everything. Spoiler, usually he'd probably think something along the lines of nice. But right now he was more concerned with the question of ... if he'd need to censor this apparently invisible girl before he could upload his video. Would he get a strike for this if he didn't? Shrugging, Kano wound his arm back before bodily throwing the two-pointer robot in his hand through the air into the three-pointer. It smashed into it and they both crumpled to the ground in a broken heap. It weighed roughly around a ton or so, but Kano could lift way more weight than that. He didn't know his max amount currently because he had no access to any facilities that could let him test that out, but he did know it was over 10 tons. Averaging out the weights of a few cars in a junkyard was simple enough after all. And at the very least, saving another person on camera would look good at least. You alright? Kano asked, walking over casually. Honestly, he'd gotten over 100 villain points at this point by his reckoning, so he wasn't too fussed about getting any more, especially when he wasn't having any fun anymore. Only an idiot like Bakashiti would feel awesome beating the crap out of a bunch of paper mache robots. Ah yeah, thank you, it's you. The curvy invisible girl turned to face him before freezing. He couldn't really tell, to be honest. The crazy guy who blew up the first street and all those buildings at the start. He had a feeling she was pointing at him, and probably gaping at him. But he couldn't tell for sure. That is me, yes. Kano smirked, crossing his arms. It was a great punch after all. Moo. She lifted one invisible leg and stamped her shoe on the ground. I had a real rough time getting over all the rubble, you know. My bad. Kano shrugged off her words even as he apologized. In my defense. He trailed off. The invisible girl was silent for a moment, waiting for him to continue, but he didn't. In your defense what? Nothing, Kano laughed. I couldn't think of one. I just didn't care about any other examinee. This isn't a team event after all. Okay, the invisible girl had nothing to say to that, her top rustling as if she were shaking her head. Okay, Mr. Crazy, strong, handsome, arrogant guy. I need to go get more points. You do, potentially very hot invisible girl. Kano snorted, waving her off. A girlish giggle erupted from the invisible space above her floating tank top, before she started moving, rushing off to get more points. He watched her leave with an appreciative gaze. She had quite the perky round invisible backside stretching out those shorts of hers. Once she turned a corner looking for villain robots to prey upon, Kano cupped his chin. Now, what to do? He mused. And at that exact moment, the ground beneath his feet rumbled, and a massive shadow rose up above the buildings of the testing grounds. A split moment later, terrified shouts and screams echoed throughout the city. Kano blinked as he looked up, and found himself staring into the head of the zero-pointer villain bot, which meant there was less than a minute less. And also, Present Mike was really fucking horrible at showing off the scale this thing would be. He hadn't mentioned at all it would be well over 300 feet in size. There was really no point to fighting such a thing. It gave no points, was absolutely massive, and a whole other slew of negatives. But what kind of hero would run away from a villain just because there was nothing in it for them? Besides, this was a great opportunity for him to show off for the camera, showing off footage of him dealing with such a massive foe. was bound to get him a lot of attention when he uploaded it on his channel later. Besides, it looks tough, he thought with glee. With a grin spreading across his face, Kano tensed his legs, white shining around his feet, before he unleashed his quirk and leaped. The ground exploded at his feet as he was launched rapidly into the air like a missile, one arm coming back as a white bubble vibrated into existence around his fist. Just a bit more than a second later, he struck like a gleaming white meteor rising up from the ground and smashed his fist into the zero-pointer's head. A wave of rippling quaking force erupted from his fist, spreading through the head of the zero-pointer and shattered it to pieces. It's pretty fragile actually, he thought idly, disappointment. But still, that wasn't enough. He had to show more. He couldn't just let such a giant body fall to the ground where other people were. He flipped mid-air and lashed out with both feet so hard air pressure erupted from the sheer force and shot him downwards. At the same time he held out one arm, coating it with a vibrating white bubble, Quake Blade. He roared as he went down, the white bubble expanding outwards in the shape of a blade and cleaving right down the middle of the massive zero-pointer, splitting it in half. Just before he reached the ground, he flipped around to smash his feet into the ground and land, gritting his teeth as he felt the impact travel up his legs and making them flare with pain. He ignored it as he lashed out with his fist once more, clad in another white bubble of quaking power, Quake Fist. He shouted as he punched up and unleashed another glowing white wave of power that smashed up into both halves of the zero-pointer, and carried it high into the air from the sheer power behind his quirk. Both halves rose high up into the air from his strike and while up there, began to shake apart into small pieces as his quirk tore them at it. When it burst apart a moment later, all that was left of the massive robot was a rain of small pieces of debris. He'd specifically cut it in half so both halves would be lighter and be easier carried by his Quake Fist. With that done, he kept his fist high in the air, posing for his drone's camera. It was the true money shot after all. T was almost surprising to Izuku, how unsurprised he was at how quiet the house was right now. Usually his brother's room just across the hall from his own emitted a cacophony of sound, whether that be from the loud music he liked to listen to as he constantly worked out, his laughing and arguing with people as he streamed gaming online, or even just the loud and girlish giggling of his girlfriend that he very much did his best to ignore. Izuku paused mid-curl of a dumbbell weighing 50 kg as he sat on his bed, a shudder running through him. Kami was a very nice girl, but she was also like his brother, very shameless and not very quiet at all. The things he'd heard her say before made his face burn even now. But the thought of her made him grimace as well, because it was his fault he wouldn't be hearing her unique verbose any longer. Kano had been spending a lot less time around the house lately, because of him. It was his fault his brother had broken up with his girlfriend of 2.5 years. His fault his amazing older brother had to throw away all of his own plans to watch over him. He couldn't even be fully truthful with his brother. Not when he hadn't actually finally obtained his own quirk but rather had inherited All Might's. As such, he had no right make apologies to him and beg for his forgiveness. He shook his head, putting it out of mind for a moment and swallowing the shame that threatened to bring tears to his eyes, and continued curling the weight in his hand. A week had passed now since the entrance exams to UA. He'd done very well on them. He'd hesitated a bit because he wasn't used to fighting, but the basics of fighting his older brother had drilled into him, had managed to cover for his inexperience alongside the ability to use 5% of All Might's strength. If it was Kanai, he could probably use the full power of One for All from the get-go. An invasive voice whispered in his ear. Invasive as it was, he didn't disagree or try to hide that thought. It was the truth after all. His brother might have only been an hour older than him, but he was amazing. It wasn't just his incredibly powerful quirk, it was his mental strength as well. Maybe it was because of the pain he went through early on as a child from almost dying when he activated his quirk. Or maybe it was the fact he spent much of his formative years around pro heroes and was personally trained by one until he could be let out into public safely without worry of his quirk going out of control. Whatever it was, his brother, while only being an hour older, had always felt much older than that. Whenever he followed behind his brother growing up, it always felt like staring at the back of a massive towering giant. Absently, Izuku rose from his bed, leaving the weight behind, and made his way over to his computer. Wedded was already up on the screen, with the video already loaded and paused. He'd already watched it dozens of times over the past week, but he couldn't help but want to watch it again. He sat down, pressed play, and watched his older brother Kano tear through the UA entrance exams as easy as breathing. With a single swung fist, he destroyed dozens of multiple-story buildings. With a single bound he cleared an entire street. Even without using his quirk, Power Quake, a single punch from him crumpled villain bots, and with a single arm he casually lifted them into the air and tossed them aside, his white and gold clothing practically glowing in under the sunlight. He looked the perfect picture of an bright, unyielding hero that could protect everyone. Nothing at all like him. Even with all the training he'd done over the last 10 months, even with all the tips and tricks he'd picked up from Kano in regards to fighting and even using his quirk, and even with his full cowling technique to use part of All Might's power to tear through the villain bots, he didn't even come close to the strength of his brother. He only managed to amass 55 villain points. His brother had more than that before 2 minutes into the exam. Even with 5% of one for all enhancing his body, Kano was faster, stronger, more durable and just flat out better in general. As expected, Kanai really is just too strong for me to keep up with right now, even with one for all. Izuku sighed. In a fight between them, his brother wouldn't even need to use his quirk. He was just flat out better than him and would decimate him easily. And it wasn't even in just physical ability, but fighting ability as well. Izuku had some basic martial art training thanks to Kano, but his older brother had trained in them for years. First as a young child under the Erasure hero Eraserhead, then later he studied at Gunhead's dojo and learned Gunhead martial arts, before moving on to Muay Thai kickboxing. Compared to him, Izuku thought he was pitiful. Even Quaking couldn't beat his brother after all, no matter how hard and how many times he tried, so what chance did he have of measuring up right now? His brother had been training his butt off for over 10 years, whereas Izuku had barely stepped over the starting line. The video progressed and Izuku bore witness to his brother helping people here or there that were having trouble with the villain bots, before finally saving and proceeding to casually flirt with an invisible girl who really should be wearing more clothes than that. No matter how many times I watch it over, I can't get used to it, I can see everything. Izuku swallowed heavily, cheeks blazing red hot. And he thought he was doing well, actually managing to hold a small conversation with the round-cheeked girl he met at the exam. But as always, he didn't hold a candle compared to his brother. And before long, it appeared. The gargantuan towering monstrosity that was the zero-pointer. Izuku shuddered as he recalled it. Shuddered in remembrance of his legs snapping like twigs alongside his arm as he leapt into action to save the round-cheeked girl, and almost died in the process. Yet in contrast to his own life or death struggle with the zero-pointer, his brother almost casually blew its head away, before splitting it down the middle with his Quake blade, then landing and unleashing his ever-mighty and unstoppable Quake fist that blew both remaining halves into the air, and pulverized them into a rain of tiny debris that wouldn't hurt anyone. It was almost like watching All Might at work. That was the kind of strength his brother possessed. To Izuku, if All Might was the incarnation of the ideal hero, and Quaking the incarnation that always pursued victory, then his brother was the personification of unstoppable power itself. Kunai. Izuku smiled wistfully as he stared at the image of his older brother on the screen, clenched fist raised high in the air victoriously. You're just too cool. The view count of the video was massive, over 1 million views. It was his brother's most viewed video of all and only after a week too. And his subscriber count had jumped by nearly 50,000 in just that week. How crazy, but Izuku wasn't really surprised. It was kind of what he expected of his brother. He sighed as he passed through the video and stood back up, making his way back over to his bed to continue curling the dumbbell. It hurt that his always reliable brother wasn't speaking to him right now. I deserve it though, he thought as he picked up the weight. He couldn't be truthful with his mother or brother about the origin of his power. As such, he could only go with a lie. That his quirk was similar to his brother's. And it only hadn't activated so far, because his body hadn't been strong enough to contain it. And even when it did activate, it had broken his arm in multiple places. His mother had horrified and terrified. After all, such a power had almost killed Kano when he was little. And Izuku had always been the weaker, more frail of the two. And now he wanted to rush off to hero school with his newly awakened and volatile quirk. His mother had refused, vehemently. It hadn't even occurred to Izuku that she would, because I was selfish. I wasn't even thinking of Mom's feelings at the time, just that my dream could come true. He grimaced. In the end, after he begged and pleaded with her, she'd agreed. If he went to Shiksu, where his brother could watch over him. Only, he couldn't go there. He needed to go to UA, that was where All Might was from and where he'd said he'd go to him. He couldn't go back on his word. He hadn't expected at the time, the kind of blowout that would occur from that selfish desire. Of his mother refusing to give in unless Kano was there to watch over him. Of his mother then pleading with Kano to go to UA instead of Shiksu like he'd been planning for so long. And his brother agreed. No matter how much it hurt him, no matter how much it strained his relationship with his girlfriend, no matter how much it affected his plans for the future. As he always had, he'd chosen Izuku. But he'd asked him one thing. Just why it had to be UA. He hadn't realized the scope of what he had taken from his brother in that moment, hadn't considered his words well, just too filled with relief. And he'd told him. UA was All Might's school, and he'd been trying so hard to train and better himself, because All Might had said he could be a hero. Watching an understanding dawn in his brother's eyes, followed by a hurt look that made him want to cry even now, had been devastating. And then anger. Kano had never been truly angry at him before. He'd been annoyed with him before, a bit aggravated here and there, but never truly angry. And ever since, his brother hadn't said a word to him. And Izuku didn't have the courage, nor the right to talk to him and beg his forgiveness. Because in the end, he couldn't even be truthful with him. Izuku. A hand banging on his door and his mother's startled, surprised call made him bounce up in his bed and drop the weight. Moments later his mother pulled the door open, a wide-eyed look on her face, and carried in her hand was 2 letters, T they're here. And Midoriya spluttered. 2 UA letters. His brother wasn't in the house at the moment, preferring to spend his time away from them lately so they could only check his own. Izuku should have been incredibly excited to get the letter, considering he was sure he passed. Even more so when the letter contained a holodisc and from it sprang a hologram showing the face of All Might, who was going to be a teacher at UA this year. But he felt a million miles away, like watching an out-of-body experience as All Might welcomed him as a student to UA and told him he passed. Because it felt very empty without his brother here as well. And the only semblance he had of his brother in this moment was the test results that popped up at the end of the message displaying the top 10 ranked examinees, and their villain points based on destroying villain bots and rescue points based on helping others during the exam. 1 Kano Midoriya, 182.25. 2 Katsuki Bakugo, 133.0. 3 Izuku Midoriya, 55.60. 4 Ochako Uraraka, 38.45. 5 Ijiro Kirishima, 39.35. 6 Ibara Shizaki, 36.32. 7 Itsuka Kendo, 25.40. 8 Tenya Ida, 52.9. 9 Tetsu, 49.10. 10 Fumikage Takoyami, 47.10. It was a dream come true, yet tasted bitter all the same to him. Tears budded in the corner of his eyes, but he did not let them fall. He didn't have the right to whine about the cost of his own actions after all. And done. Ochako released a sigh of relief, wiping the sweat that had gathered on her forehead from her brow. That was exhausting. She huffed, running her hands through her hair and grimacing when she felt how soaked it was from her sweat. She had just finished finally unpacking her things and arranging everything in her new home away from home. Before, she hadn't been sure she would get into UA, so she'd stayed here a few days leading up to the exam. But it had been 2 weeks now since the exam, and just last week she'd got a letter in the mail when she was back home with her folks, announcing to her that she had passed. Not only had she passed, she'd done amazing. Ranked 4th overall out of multiple hundred applicants and out of only 42 that had passed. She almost couldn't believe it. Going into the exam, even with the advice she'd gotten from Kano and made a plan in advance, she was nervous and thought even if she did pass, odds were she'd have been one of the lowest scoring. But no, instead she was one of the highest. She'd been so happy when the cute form of Principal Nezu revealed her acceptance at her Hero Academia she'd burst into tears, and her mom had taken a picture of her while she did. Though Kano-kun completely blew my score out of the water, she mused. She was pretty close to 3rd place, Izuku Midoriya, who she thought might have been the timid boy with the green hair and plain face that saved her and absolutely blew away the 0-pointer. He had those same lovely green eyes as Kano, and it made sense that Kano's brother would have such a crazy powerful quirk just like him. She still felt a little guilty about that. If he hadn't rushed to save her and ended up hurting himself really badly with his quirk to save her, he would have been able to score even higher. He might even have been able to take 2nd place from that Bakugo fellow who was 2nd place. They were probably aiming to get 1st and 2nd place as brothers, yeah. It would have been a really amazing accomplishment as family, right? 3rd place isn't bad though. She contented herself with that. And it wasn't like he could have gotten 1st either anyway, not with Kano-kun at the top. He didn't just blow her out of the water, he blew everyone out of the water. Even the guy in 2nd place didn't come close to his score. I wonder what that guy is up to right now. Ochako wondered idly as she sat down on her bed. He was pretty intense about chasing that hero route from what he told her. From his personal image, to working tons of part-time jobs growing up and now getting his name out there, making money and creating a fan base in advance on WebTube. Her eyes drifted over to the corner of her bedroom where a rather old chunky screen computer sat. They only had one computer at home, and this wasn't it. But her dad had given her one of the computers they weren't using at his parents' construction company office. It was nothing at all like the kind of computers her friends had, and wasn't even a match for the school computers she used back in middle school. But she wasn't going to complain. It might have been slow and laggy and prone to freezing and crashing, but it still got the job done. I wonder if I can find his WebTube account. She wondered, bouncing up off of her bed and making her way over to the old computer to boot it up. It took a few minutes before she desktop loaded up on the computer, and then she brought up the internet browser and went to the WebTube website. There was an app for it, she'd heard. But she only had an old cheap flip phone that couldn't even download apps or anything like that, so there wasn't anything she could do there. Right, what did he call it again? Ochako mused, poking the bottom of her chin in thought. Imperial. Something. She'd been a bit too taken aback at the time when she learned the kind of money he was making from it, so she couldn't remember fully what his account or whatever on WebTube was called. I'll just add some words that fit what he's doing on top, I guess. She shrugged, before doing just that and typing Imperial Hero Training into the search bar. To her surprise, she got it on first try. The first thing at the top of the list was a WebTube channel icon, which was a picture of Kano dressed in a sleeveless hoodie showing off his muscular arms, with his fist held up and a familiar pretty white bubble formed around his fist, a grin on his face. And was that lightning flashing in the background of the picture? She blinked again as she saw the subscriber total listed beneath the icon, alongside the name of his channel, Imperial 69. Imperial 69 826 Kelvin subscribers. Geez. Achako's eyes flew wide open in shock. Over 800,000 subscribers to his channel. He already had over 800,000 fans following him. That was crazy. It was no wonder he was making so much money if he had that many subscribers. Kano really was thinking far ahead for when he became a hero. She wished she had that kind of go-getter ability. She clicked on his channel and entered it and was surprised to find he was apparently live streaming right this moment. The video had a thumbnail of Kano himself in just a pair of shorts posing on a beach with a big cheesy grin and thumbs up directed at the camera. She wanted to click on it and see what he was doing, but first, there was something else she wanted to check. From what she remembered, Kano told her he was going to be recording his entrance exam. She knew he aced it and got the best score of all, but she really wanted to see the kind of thing the top-scoring student was capable of. She tilted her head when she saw the videos. She found the one she was looking for. After scrolling down slightly, it seemed, since 2 weeks ago Kano had been posting at least 1 or 2 videos a day. Actually, in total, it claimed he had over 1,000 videos uploaded on his channel. That was kind of crazy right there as well. Most seemed to range from between 200,000 views to 400,000 here and there. But there were a few outliers that rose above that, reaching the 600 and even 700,000 views. YouTube creators made money based on how much views they got right. She wondered how much they got per view. The views on the videos from the last 2 weeks, though, were all above 500,000. Even one just uploaded last night had that amount. Though, there was one massive outlier that had over 3 million views. The video started off with Kano talking to the camera, while in a bedroom, most likely his own. It shouldn't have been all that interesting, but Ochako had never actually seen the bedroom of a boy her age that she knew. The walls were painted a deep dark crimson red, and she could see lights of some sort running across the ridges between the walls and ceiling, though they weren't lit. There was a walk-in closet to the side of the room that was painted black, to match the rather large bed in the middle of the room that seemed a bit bigger than a double size, so maybe it was a queen or king size. It was clad in deep black satin-looking sheets and the bed frame itself was a pitch black metal. At one side of the room, she could see a rack filled with weights attached to the wall, made of pitch black metal, while the weights themselves were primarily black with red trim. And at the other side of the room she could see a very expensive-looking computer setup. The processor was see-through at the front like a window and was lighting up like a rainbow in the middle, while atop his desk he had, not 1, not 2, not even 3, but 4 expensive-looking flat-screen monitors hanging from a brace on the wall of some sort. There was probably a lot more to the room, but that was all she could see from the camera angle she was looking into. To Ochako though, if she didn't know better from what Kano told her, she'd assume he came from a pretty darn rich family. As it was though, Kano spoke to the camera for only a tiny period of time, before a transition appeared to show a bird's-eye view of a massive entrance gate into a city just like the one she took her exam in. And her eyes promptly widened as the gates opened and Kano stepped forward and punched out with his fist. And broke the city. Well, not the whole city. And it wasn't a real city either. But the city block Kano demolished with a single punch was the same size as any other tightly packed Japanese street block. It was crazy. She'd only ever seen destruction like that in videos with All Might going all out. And even then she'd never seen him level a city block with a punch. Granted, it wasn't totally just a punch and Kano letting loose a massive shock-wave thing from his fist that expanded to a massive size and swept over the city block and tore it apart. But semantics. It was crazy. And while he toned it down from there, since all the other examinees were then inside the testing area after that, it was still no less crazy how casually he tore apart the villain bots. Even without his quirk he crumpled them with casual punches, and tossed them around like they were pillows. She frowned as flirted with the invisible girl, only to forget all about that just a few moments later when the zero-pointer appeared. And Kano demolished it as if it were nothing. It was so casual, so seamless, that she idly wondered why he even needed to go to hero school when he looked like he was superior to most of the pros she'd seen in action, at least as far as combat went. No wonder that got so many views. Ochako shook her head with a snort that was just absurd to watch. Hopefully she never had to spar with Kano when they started UA in 2 weeks. He might accidentally squash her with a casual punch. Shaking her head, Ochako clicked off of the video and finally went to check out the live stream Kano had going on. Seriously hella different from the last time I was here. Kano was walking along a beach, arms clasped behind his head as he spoke, a pair of sunglasses over his eyes. I swear just a year ago the toxic fumes coming off of this place was literally visible, coming out in puke green and ruddy brown waves. Cool, but where's Kami? Do you know who done it? Was it a hero? It's manly as all hell, dude. You kidding? As if a hero should be wasting their time with stuff like that. They're too cool for that. You're on a beach, why isn't Kami there as well? I want to see her in a bikini. Brosflife donated $2,500. Hey Kano, just wanna say I've been following you for ages, you're totally amazing. I got into working out and taking care of myself through some of your tutorials on getting fit, and it really helped me out of a bad place I was in. Just ignore these overly horny idiots. You don't need to tell them why Kami hasn't been popping up in your videos lately. Who cares about the bimbo? I just wanna see Kano punch the shit out of shit. Kano destroy the ocean with a punch like you did on your test. Let loose again, that was freaking awesome. Fuck you brosif, Kami's tits are love and life. I would kill you for her if she let me motorboat her. Dude, you're disgusting, get a life. Yeah bro, that ain't manly at all. Kami's cool and all and manly as heck, but this channel is about Kano, not her. I'm more interested in Kano showing us some sick moves or his workouts. Achako winced reading over the comments. A lot of them were very supporting, but quite a few different people kept spamming asking about some girl called Kami, and that one guy even donated money to him because he was a fan. That donation alone was enough to get like 3 or 4 bags of matcha. Kano on the screen stopped and gave an annoyed sigh. Red Riot, it was actually my little brother who cleaned up this beach over the past 10 months or so as part of his training to get ready for the UA entrance exams, he replied aloud, turning to look at the camera. And even through his sunglasses Achako could see the annoyed furrow in his brows. And thanks for the donation, Brosif, and I'm glad my videos were able to help you out of a bad spot. Keep on the grind, buddy. That hard work isn't going to betray you. He ran a hand through his hair and clicked his tongue after that. As for Kami ... well, we broke up, Kano said with a shrug and a sardonic smirk splaying across his face, though to Achako, it looked a little sad. Them's the breaks when two people go to completely different hero schools, and since I'm going to UA now instead of Shiksu, we figured a relationship would be too hard to maintain. Oh, so he had a girlfriend before. Achako realized and understood where his easy flirtations came from when she met him. And she was right on the money, that he was used to dealing with girls and that was why it seemed to come naturally. Poor Kano, having to break up with his girlfriend in order to pursue his career as a hero, she really felt for him. But even in personal matters outside of being a hero, he was a real go-getter, huh? She had to admire a guy who put in that much effort into things. I need to work even harder from now on, she said to herself. Actually, didn't that Brosif guy say Kano had tutorial videos on working out and stuff? Maybe she could check them out. Oh man, dude, I am so sorry. Wait, are you telling me there won't be any more busty blonde bimbo babe on this channel anymore? That's so lame. Totally ditching now. I ain't got any interest in your stupid muscles. I only came here cause of the boobs. Actually, why are you going to UA? Weren't you supposed to go to Shiksu with Kami as well? I remember you saying at a video you were going to take their recommendation exam and had planned on living at the dorms there alongside Kami. That sucks, man, but at least you're totally being manly about it and not letting it keep you down. I'm totally mirroring you, bro. You and your brother, he's super manly too. I can't believe he cleaned up that beach himself. F in the chat for our king, Imperial Army. F, 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 F. Achako stared nonplussed as tens of dozens of the letter F spawned into the chat over and over from loads and loads of different people. She had no idea what it meant, but she typed an F and hit enter herself. What is the Imperial Army? She wondered even as the Fs continued to be spammed in the chat. She had no idea what was going on at this point, but she couldn't look away either. It was weird. Yeah, grape god, annoying as you are, Kami won't be around anymore. We're done. Kano rolled his eyes so hard Achako could see it through his sunglasses. And guys, it isn't really a big deal. I've went into it before, but my little brother's quirk manifested not long ago. And it's a lot like mine, like he easily breaks his bones with it because it's so powerful. He's been dreaming of UA all his life, but my mom was terrified he was going to kill himself by accident by pushing too hard with his quirk, so I'm heading to UA as well to watch out for him. Oh man, I'm crying right now. NGLFRFR. Bro, like you are so goddamn manly. A man amongst men. It's no wonder you got the top spot at the exam. I super hope we're classmates. It'll be so epic. What Red Riot said. I'd offer to take you out for a drink, but you ain't old enough yet sadly, and that's a crime. And I won't do shit like that anymore. Like you said, right, nobody else can deal with our quirks but us, right? Can't use them as an excuse to do bad stuff just cause our quirks suck. Yeah, whatever, this shit is cringe. King, did you see any other cute chicks at the exam? Beyond that invisible chick. I was too busy trying not to get squashed by them dumbass robots to check any of the babes out. There was quite a few people talking in the chat, offering condolences and talking about how much of a good brother he was, or just spamming out pride emojis and stuff. 3 of them stood out in particular though, Red Riot, Brosflife and Grape God. 2 of them because of how supporting they were ... and the third because he was a complete and utter pervert. And going by his words, was at the UA exam as well. I seriously hope I don't end up in the same class as whoever this weirdo pervert is. Achako cringed. At least Red Riot seemed like a kind of cool guy who was easy to get along with. Though the pervert sure changed his tune fast, going from mouthing off cheekily because this Kami girl wasn't around anymore, to calling him Kano King and so he could ask about other girls. You're going to die a virgin or commit a crime at this rate, Grape God. Trust me, that won't work out well. Just look at Kano, you want to end up a villain and have him come squash you. You should take his example and improve yourself. I'm benching 1,235 kilograms now thanks to him. And even working 2 decently paying jobs thanks to the advice Kano gave in a video about getting a permit to use my quirk in specific jobs. I've even had some heroes stop by to ask me to be their psychic. God, will you get off Kano's dick for 1 second, Brosif? I'm on the road to be a hero. Then I won't need to commit a crime to get chicks. I'll just be super popular and get them to like me then. Grape, that's such a non-manly reason to be a hero. Like it's alright to be excited for perks from the job, but the main reason we do it is to help people cause that's manly. And then before long an argument broke out in the chat. and was literally everyone against Grape God, who just didn't seem to care at all about others' opinions. Calm down guys, Grape is an overly horny idiot. But it's no reason to gang up on him, Kano snorted in amusement. And good work Brosif, keep it up, that's in the ton range, that's amazing. See, you guys don't get Kano like I do. He's a big perv just like me, you can tell by how big Kami's mega milkers were. Those were definitely D-cups by my highly trained estimate. King Kano was totally scoping out the cute babes he'd be going to school with now that he's single. E-cup actually Grape, but that's not the point and seriously no girl is ever going to be into you if you keep shit like that up. Kano replied as he continued walking along the beach. Do guys seriously talk about stuff like that? Achako wondered. She was learning so much just watching this stream in the chat. It felt a little bit like Kano was bragging there about his ex-girlfriend's breast size, but very subtly. If she didn't see a quick little smirk on his face, she wouldn't have even realized. She looked down at her own chest and cocked her head to the side. Her own breasts were a 33D. They were relatively big, she supposed. God, she hoped that wasn't an invitation from this Grape God guy to bother her. Gah, you trying to dab on me, you damn overly muscular Reiju. Go explode. Think you're so cool just cause you got the top spot in the exam and have stupid huge muscles and aren't a virgin like me and ... dude fuck you. Achako blinked at the message from Grape God ... It seemed like a whole lot of whining and complaining about Kano being popular, and then just flat out giving up. Congratulations Grape, you played yourself. And Brosif wasted no time in replying to him mockingly. Dude, you don't need to get jealous or compare yourself to me. You should just work on yourself and become the best version of yourself you can. Kano replied with a chuckle, and now that she thought about it, how was he reading the chat? He wasn't holding anything and even the camera itself was following him along without him doing anything. But since you're that interested, I wasn't really paying attention to the girls during the exam. But I did meet a pretty cute one before the exam, and I know for a fact she made it into UA. Achako blinked, and then his words registered and her eyes flew wide open. Wait, that's me right. Ooh spill. How sexy was she? How thick was she bro? Was she as hot as Kami? Hotter? Or was she a total uggo? Actually kinda curious myself now. If you know she passed, you either know her now or after meeting her that morning and got her deets, or she was on the top 10 list, and I saw a few girls on there. Actually, I'm on there too. But I'll keep it a secret who I am until I see you at UA. I'm psyched to meet you in person. Ah Red Riot, I'm totally jealous. I wanna meet Kano Earl and hang out. Kano wanna go gym together. I know a place where you can get a sweet deal. They might even become another sponsor for you to get their name out more. This Grape guy is menace, I better tell the teachers what he's like and to keep an eye on him. Achako frowned, a shiver running down her spine. It was creepy seeing this weirdo asking about her. So you're in the 10. 2 Red Riot. That's cool, hope we can have a fun spar or something at UA. I think I remember you saying your quirk was hardening before, right? You might be able to take a few hits from me. Kano grinned before shrugging. As for the girl, I'm not gonna drop her name or anything here, but she was definitely cute, and I can safely say now that I'm not dating Kami anymore, that she doesn't lose out to her. And she had a gravity-based quirk and loves matcha apparently. He then cupped his chin and thought, and you know Brosif, that might not be a bad idea. A fan meet and greet kind of thing where we all hit up the gym could be fun, right? Achako felt her cheeks warm up a bit. She wasn't sure how pretty this Kami girl was, but going by the way that Grape weirdo talked about her, it seemed she was very attractive. So being compared to her was quite a compliment, right? She felt a little sleazy watching this now. He was probably saying this because he wasn't expecting her to ever see it. Oh shit, as hot as Kami. Bruh, I'm so into that. I would love to grape a babe like that with my hot piping banana, if you know what I mean, right bros? And her guilt was immediately replaced by revulsion. Who even says stuff like that? Achako growled in anger and disgust. This Grape guy ... was a massive creep. Grape, seriously dude, do not ever say shit like that again. Kano's eyes narrowed noticeably behind his sunglasses and he stopped in place. If I find you bothering her, or perving on any girl actually the way you do in this chat, I'm gonna punch you in the face with an earthquake. As if to punctuate his words, he lifted one arm, a white crackling bubble forming into existence around his fist, before punching out towards the ocean without even looking. A large shock wave of rippling blinding white erupted, tearing through the water and carving a massive trench at least 20 feet wide and more deep through the water for over 100 feet before it fizzled out. Red Riot, dude. Kano's gonna end up killing you by accident. I hope you followed some of his training tips, else you're gonna be in for a world of hurt knowing your lack of self-control. Brosflife, absolutely shameful. Imagine trying to become a hero and saying stuff like this. At least with Kano around we can be sure you won't be able to do anything there. I fear for those poor little girls being exposed to a little pervert like you Grape. Slancelot, no pity here. I just hope Kano gets the footage of him crushing this little freak. Their Vengeoff shitlord, paste this little fucker Kano. Thunder Basilisk, this kid needs a reality check for sure. I hope UA has some good screening processes to deal with him. Cat Monarch, L, Grapist wannabe gonna get smooshed by an earthquake. Get wrecked loser. Kingaran, get fucked Grape bitch. Killikillip, Elmao, Grape. Idiot forgot earthquake beats Grape. GG nerd. The chat seemed to harp on it, the grape god guy there, and he shut up from there and didn't reply, except for a single little subdued sorry. Ochako couldn't say she blamed him. She wouldn't want to get on Kano's bad side and have him threaten to punch her with that shockwave thing he just unleashed. She could breathe a sigh of relief though that he probably wouldn't mess with her thanks to Kano. At least anywhere he could see him. Right. I think it's about time we actually got down to my training here for the day. We got a little sidetracked, Kano chuckled. I'm gonna go to an ad break from a couple of my sponsors, and while that's going, I'm gonna find a good place to train where I won't disturb anyone. There was a flurry of messages in the chat, mostly those hyped for Kano actually getting down to the point of his video, before it cut off and was replaced by an advert. Ochako didn't even know that was a thing live streamers could do. But then, she barely used WebTube, and when she did it was usually for things like videos about cute cats and stuff. The first ad that popped up was for some game app that could be played on phones. Blitz Darkness Saga. It actually looked kind of cool, but not really Ochako's thing. She wasn't much of a gamer besides the little snake-eating things on her phone. Her family couldn't really afford gaming consoles and stuff like that. I think that's enough watching this anyway. Ochako mused to herself, clicking off of the video. Over a half an hour had passed since she started watching Kano-kun's live stream, and she was probably even more confused about it than when she went in. She did confirm one thing though, Kano had quite the rabid and weird fanbase, some who she would even be going to hero school with. And on that topic, she still had 2 weeks before her tenure at UA Academy began, and she had just picked up a little tip from that Brosif guy. Kano had video tutorials on training, such good ones that apparently it let that Brosif guy bench press literally a ton. Before Kano knew it, February sped past and March came around. And suddenly, it was his time to make his hero high school debut. February had been very busy for him. From the UA entrance exams, to his WebTube channel spiking up in subscribers and viewership after he uploaded the video of him crushing the entrance exams. The absolute demolishing of the zero-pointer had even showed up in some other people's videos. He jumped up over 100,000 subscribers over the last month. It had taken him 3 years to slowly cultivate to 700,000, and it just spiked up massively over the last month. It made him feel amazing. The Imperial Army was truly growing at an astonishing rate. Kinda funny I didn't even come up with it, he mused. Imperial was the name he'd chosen ages ago in advance to become his hero name. The shining, unyielding hero, Imperial. It didn't match his quirk or anything like that at all, but it was a reference to himself nonetheless. A reference to all the unyielding backbreaking work he'd went through all his life to be able to handle his quirk. And that would translate into his role as a hero, an unyielding, unbeatable hero that no villain could ever hope to defeat, an unyielding hero who would never allow anyone shielded by his back to be hurt. It was a little embarrassing now, but to be fair he did come up with it when he was 12. As such he'd named his WebTube account after his hero name. Well, Imperial had been taken so he'd added 69 on at the end, because he thought it was funny. His fans had made an archive for him on Greenit, and all members who joined it basically declared themselves as the Imperial Army, his loyal fanbase. It was actually very touching. Of course, there were haters he had, mostly those complaining about how he was only where he was from luck and whining about him on 4kun. But it was hard to care about people whining about whatever nonsense they came up with. At first, it had hurt a little bit. He was only a young lad of 12 when people first started slinging insults about him, and he even cried a little bit, he would admit to himself. But over time, he came to realize that they were just petty, sad little jealous nothings. They hated him not just because he had a powerful quirk, though they ignored all the problems it caused, but because he made them feel inferior because of the effort he put in to improve himself and make something of himself. And in the end, he was glad for them. Because he knew that even the best of heroes had very vocal critics trying to undermine them with the slightest mistake they made. They turned out to be good training for people I'd be dealing with in the future. Kano chuckled as he finished pulling on and fastening his trusty ever-sturdy boots. He stood up then, and hoisted his bag up onto his shoulder and got ready to leave. He'd heard Izuku leaving not long ago and let him head out a few minutes first so he didn't need to deal with him for the moment. Not that he could avoid him for long. Class Waniha. Kano mused as he made his way to his bedroom door and stepped out into the hall. The same class Izuku would be in according to his mother. The only silver lining in that regard was the fact he knew his grumpy asshole mentor always taught 1A, while the blood hero Vlad King taught 1B. As he closed his bedroom door he turned towards the front door, before stopping and clicking his tongue. His mother stood there waiting for him, a sad frown on her face. He'd heard her saying goodbye to Izuku earlier, but assumed she'd return to the living room or something after he left. His mistake. Seeing me off as well? He asked, giving her a sardonic smirk as he walked over towards the front door. Of course I am, it's your first day of high school, Inko, his mother replied, tears budding in the corner of her eyes as she gave him a watery smile. I know. Things aren't going how you imagined, and that's mostly my fault, and I've been a terrible mother, but this is a big day for you. I couldn't just let you keep giving me the cold shoulder. Kano grimaced. He so didn't want to do this right now. He wasn't the best with emotions. He knew he was justified in his anger at both her and his brother, but he also knew avoiding them himself was petty of him. He wanted to tell her she wasn't a bad mother. She was doing the best she could, even if she babied Izuku a bit too much. But he understood that as well. Because the guilt she had over Izuku not being born with a quirk at all, and the guilt she felt about his own quirk, which was massively evolution from her own quirk, had plagued her for 10 years. Even to this day he heard her sometimes, in her room, cry herself to sleep over it. Back when he was a young boy, his mother was wholly different. From an objective standpoint, she was a beautiful, gorgeous lady, but because of his stupid quirk and Izuku just being unlucky, she'd been overcome with guilt and ended up stress eating just to function during those years. He hadn't even seen her much beyond once a month since his quirk activated when he was 4, right up until he was nearly 7 years old. And he saw it with each visit, how she visibly wilted into herself, how she gained weight with each meeting, became less sure of herself, quieter, lost the happy cheer that used to surround her. Even now he could see the bags under her eyes from a lack of sleep. The whole goddamn reason he even wanted to be a hero was for her. To give his mother a better, more enjoyable life. Not the sad state brought on by his own innate destructive power or his brother's original lack of power that she felt just as guilty over. It was as if she thought every bad thing that happened to him and Izuku was her fault and made her a failure of a mother. "You're not a bad mother, Mom," Kano sighed, his guilt getting the better of him, and he stepped over to pat her on the shoulder. Despite his guilt, he couldn't bring himself to hug her right now. "I'm just mad, and it's easier for me if I don't have to talk to you right now, because you can't put your foot down with Izuku, or me now actually." Objectively speaking about it, his mother was very lenient. She hadn't scolded him at all for literally losing his virginity at 13 to Kami, and she was always very warm and welcoming to Kami, even when he knew she disapproved of how quickly their relationship had progressed. She literally let him, at 13 years old, have a girlfriend stay the night with him, in his bed. But because of her guilt, she'd let him get away with things he should have been disciplined over. Even when he got suspended from school for punching out a teacher for making fun of Izuku, she hadn't even really scolded him. Even if it was to defend his brother, punching out a teacher was stupid and crazy. He'd matured enough at least to realize that. "I know ... and I wanted to give you your space. You deserve it after everything you're doing for me and your brother," his mom sniffled. "But I still have to see you off on your big day." Kano rolled his eyes, but he smiled at her nonetheless. "I know." This time he couldn't stop himself from wrapping an arm her shoulder and leaning down to hug her. "Thanks, Mom. I love you." His mother burst into tears. It took a little while to calm his mother down after she burst out into tears and sobbed her heart out. He'd ended up having to soothe her and direct her back to bed and plop the television on for her to watch some of her favorite soaps while relaxing. He'd have made her breakfast in bed even if he had the time, but he was on a tight schedule. It was Hero High School time after all. Luckily for him, he didn't need to go wait for some silly little train, and after leaving his home behind, he hopped over the railing, dropped down a few stories and landed in the car park beside his trusty motorcycle. Her name was Bessie. After all, in the immortal words of a long-dead king, from a long-dead fantasy series from before the age of quirks he'd found online. Thank the gods for Bessie. And thanks to Bessie's amazing specs, he made it in time before the bell went, and he was late to his first ever class at UA. Aizawa would have gave him the chewing out of a lifetime if he was in front of the class for sure as well. The old fuddy-duddy was petty like that and a big fan of dressing downs like that as well to install discipline. He took a moment after parking good old Bessie to just take in the massive building that functioned as the main building of UA High School. He'd been to it before, and not just in the exam, but it had been a while for him since he'd been back. It felt almost like coming back to a second home. He'd spent 3 months constant here as a child, then came back quite a number of times after to stay here and there under the watchful gaze of Recovery Girl. A fond smile spread across his face at the thought of the old woman. She was one of the reasons he even survived his quirk manifesting. And it was thanks to her, his physical training under Aizawa progressed so quickly as a child. Every night she'd use her quirk on him to speed up the rate at which his muscles healed, so he could get right back to training his body to the limit at the next day. It had been 3 months of hell under her and Aizawa made to ensure he could survive his quirk getting out of control. But he looked back on those days fondly now. It had been the start of the path that made him the man he was today. Or well, almost man. Since technically he couldn't be classified as a man until he was of legal age. Silly that. The main building of UA was absolutely massive, and styled into a giant H shape, with each side of the building being covered entirely by slated windows that gleamed a shimmering blue under the sunlight. He made his way into the school building, towards where he knew the classrooms were, taking in the wide sweeping hallways and high ceilings that were familiar, yet altogether different after 10 years. And before long he found himself standing in front of the massive door leading into his classroom, made that way for those who had quirks who gave them massive sizes. He pulled the door open, and froze on the spot as his eyes immediately landed on 3 people standing directly in front of the door. One, a tall guy with a broad build and short, neat dark blue hair and glasses, a familiar short and cute brunette. And his little brother who turned to look at him, alongside practically every person in the class. Kanye. Izuku swallowed, staring at him like a deer caught in the headlights. Was it her or did the air just get really heavy? The instant Kano-kun opened the door and locked eyes with who Ochako was happy to confirm was his brother Izuku, going by the boy's own muttering of Kanai. It was like all sound in the room just abruptly froze. The glasses boy was looking very confused by the freckle-faced boy's abrupt silence and the staring contest. Woof, Midoriya the smaller looked very nervous, while Kano-kun stared straight into his eyes, very intensely. Now that I'm looking at them up close though, I can see the resemblance. Ochako mused. At first, she thought they really didn't look alike, but they did. Kano was taller and broader, and his hair was in a completely different style from the frizzy mess his younger brother had, and his face was thinner and more angular, having lost the baby fat on his cheeks that his brother still had. But the overall shape of their face, their eyes, their nose, even their mouth were pretty much identical. The difference probably came about from the diet Kano had told her about that he'd been on since he was young to bulk up his body to handle his crazy overpowered quirk. Beyond that, the only really big difference was Kano didn't have freckles. Kano-kun looked like he was waiting for something, but after a few moments of a tense heavy silence, he grunted and walked past him. Hey Ochako, glad to see we're in the same class. He greeted her with a brief smile and gave the glasses-wearing boy a nod before continuing on. She wasn't sure what the tense atmosphere going on was, but she smiled back anyway, but before she could respond, "Hey, vibrator dick." A surly shout from across the room made her head whip over alongside everyone else to look at a very angry-looking red-eyed blonde that was practically snarling their face. "What the fuck are you doing here? I thought you were heading to fucking Shitsetsu with your damn fat-lipped bimbo bitch of a girlfriend, huh? You trying to ruin my perfect backstory just like that shithead Deku?" Ooh, it seemed the angry blonde knew Kano-kun as well, and what the hecking heck was with that attitude? Kano tilted his head to the side and cast a sneering look that twisted his face into an angry look that wouldn't look out of place on a delinquent, and was near identical to the expression on the angry blonde boy's face. "Watch your damn mouth, shithead. You want me to kick you around this classroom like every other time you pick a fight with me?" A fated battle between men. Ochako wondered. They hadn't really said much so far, but even with that little there was a lot to unpack there. Also, it was kind of weird to see that kind of attitude coming from Kano, considering he always seemed very kind in his videos. And he was very kind to her, if a bit flirty for her tastes. Then again, considering what she saw of his ex-girlfriend in a few of his videos while she was checking out the training tutorials he put up. The angry blonde snarled and literally shot up in his seat. Literally. He jumped atop it and stepped forward, placing one foot atop his desk and brought his hands up. Small crackling sounds like that of a firecracker popping in his palms. "Bitch, please. It's been 6 months since we last fought. Don't think things will end the same as last time." Angry blonde spat out with a vicious smirk. "I'll kill your dumb vibrating ass dead this time. In 8 years, you've never beaten me once," Kano-kun fired back, crossing his arms and jutting his chin out tauntingly at the boy. "An extra like you could never beat me. That's it." Angry blonde's eyes simmered with rage and his legs tensed as he prepared to launch himself at the green-haired boy. "Keikachin, Kanye, calm down, don't fight." The freckled Midoriya hurriedly cut in, waving his arms through the air. "Too right, you hooligans. This is an esteemed place of learning to become heroes and not for petty fighting, eh? Shut the fuck up, Deku." Angry blonde twisted his head to snarl like a raging beast. That was some real crazy eyes he was making. So violent. And Deku, like Dekuru. A nickname. The angry blonde seemed to have grown up with him and Kano-kun, so a nickname from childhood. She supposed Deku-kun had to have been pretty skilled growing up at things like his brother. Well, he did get 3rd place after all. Deku-kun froze up at the shout from the angry blonde. "Kachin." His eyes went to Kano-kun as if expecting him to say something. And he wasn't the only one. The angry blonde turned to him with a sneering smirk, only to lose it almost immediately, and be replaced with a confused look when Kano-kun didn't do anything. Was she missing something? "How about you all shut the hell up?" A voice coming from behind her made Ochako jump with a yelp and whirl around to find a giant yellow caterpillar. The caterpillar rose up and loomed taller than her, and it was then Ochako noticed a tired-looking man's face hanging out of the top. "Oh, it's a sleeping bag," she realized after a moment. A bland gaze swept over the classroom. "You should have all been sitting waiting in your seats a whole 16 seconds ago. Instead, you idiots are having a ball and making an annoying racket. Huh." The man droned in annoyance before his eyes slowly roved over to land on Kano-kun, and he snorted dryly. "Why am I not surprised the biggest problem child in all of existence is the cause of this ruckus?" Kano in return dropped the sneering delinquent-looking expression to roll his eyes at the man. "Great to see you too, Eraserhead-sensei." He tossed the man a sardonic wave. Eraserhead." Deku-kun's eyes bulged. The man who helped Kanye as a child with the powerful quirk that lets him stop quirks from working. Amazing. He's a total underground hero, so hardly anything is known about him or his fighting style. I wonder how his quirk works against those with mutant-type quirks. Would they return to an average-looking form? Or would it just not work at all? I'll really need to. Well, that's a thing. Ochako gazed at Deku blankly as he began to rapid-fire mumble at a pace she could barely make sense of and whipped out a notebook from somewhere. Enough of this. Eraserhead huffed in annoyance, unzipping his sleeping bag and stepping out of it, and in his hand he was holding what looked like a bunch of blue uniforms. Put these on and then get out onto the fields outside. Quirk assessment test. There was a number of surprised shouts as their apparent new homeroom teacher Aizawa-sensei and the pro-hero Eraserhead announced that they would be taking part in a quirk assessment test when they were all changed into their new gym uniforms and arrived on the outside field. Sensei. Ochako raised her hand. What about the ceremony? And the guidance counselor meeting? TCH, Aizawa-sensei clicked his tongue at her question and rolled his eyes. If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for nonsense like that, he replied. He then cast a look over his shoulder at her and the rest of the class. You should all already understand the freedom this school has when it comes to teaching up and coming heroes. That freedom applies to we teachers here too, he explained. Softball pitch, standing long jump, 50-meter dash, endurance running, grip strength test, sustained sideways jumps, upper body exercise and seated toe touches. You should all know these fitness tests from your time in middle school, though you obviously didn't use your quirks for them back then. He turned around and Ochako followed his gaze and found herself looking straight at Kano-kun. Kano, what was your furthest softball pitch in middle school? He asked. Kano raised an eyebrow, before shrugging. 881 meters. He replied easily. There was a mass-off surprised muttering from the rest of the class, and even Ochako found her eyes widening in shock. 800 meters. Like she knew his physical strength was insane from the videos she saw on his YouTube channel, but that was insane. Her own record pitch was only 34 meters. About as expected, Aizawa-sensei grunted, apparently not surprised at all, and reached into his pocket to pull out a weight ball and tossed it to Kano. Step into the circle and give it a toss, and use your quirk, though do try to keep it limited. I don't want to have to get some craters filled up on the first day. You sure? Kano-kun raised an eyebrow in return as he casually inspected the ball in his hand. You won't be getting this back. Don't care, just do it. Aizawa-sensei grunted. Kano-kun shrugged and walked out from the group of assembled students to stand in the middle of the pitcher circle. Despite the fact it was only a softball throw, Ochako found herself leaning forward in anticipation. She'd seen the crazy stuff he'd done in videos when training with his quirk, but this would be the first time she'd be getting to see it up close and personal besides that little bit he showed when he gave her a ride to the exams. Kano eyed the ball in his hand for a moment, before looking over his shoulder and looking at his brother Deku. His lips twitched up briefly into what looked like a smirk, before he turned away and faced forward again, and lifted his arm up high over his shoulder. The air began to vibrate all of a sudden, and a moment later, a familiar shimmering white orb crackled into existence around Kano's fist closed around the soft ball. Crush! Kano shouted and his arm snapped forward. There was a sound like shattering glass, and for a brief moment as he released the soft ball in his hand, Ochako thought she saw cracks like that on a pane of glass shimmering in the air, before she yelped as a massive blast of force smashed into her and her classmates alike and sent many of them staggering back. Ochako peered through her arms that had come up to protect her face on instinct, and she noticed that almost all of her classmates were in, except a few. Aizawa-sensei for one, alongside the angry blonde, and Deku-kun were faring a lot better than the rest. Alongside a boy with spiky red hair whose arms had come up and formed into thick jagged shapes, with a tiny little boy hiding behind him with hair that looked like a bunch of purple balls. Wait, was that Grape God? God, she hoped not. But going by that red-haired boy's arms, and him apparently having a hardening quirk, that meant he was probably Red Riot, right? Geez, what are the chances we'd all end up in the same class? Ochako thought, before shaking her head and putting it out of mind. It seemed those five had all expected the kind of aftershocks that would be caused by Kano-kun simply throwing a ball, and been prepared to deal with it. Aizawa-sensei dug a pinky into his ear and wiggled it for a moment, before turning back to the class, and Ochako noticed he was holding something that looked like a smartphone, with a number indicator rising rapidly atop it. Before anything else, one must know what they're capable of, Aizawa-sensei said. This is a rational metric that will form the basis of your hero foundation going forward from here. Just as he finished, the rapidly inclining number on the device slowed and came to a stop. 4,405.8 meters. Over 4,000 meters. That was how far Kano had thrown that softball just then. And to think that was him dialing down his quirk. Unreal. Kano-kun for sure was the real deal. Holy shit, over 4,000 meters. That's freaking crazy. Hell yeah. That's what I expected from the king of the Imperial Army. Manly as all hell. Red Riot even said manly in real life as well. Awesome, this looks so fun. We can really use our quirks freely for this. Amazing. That's the hero course for you. Woo yeah. Looks fun, huh? Aizawa-sensei cut the abrupt excited chattering off with an annoyed growl. So you were planning on spending these next 3 years just having a jolly old good time, huh? Fine then, if that's the way you want to play it. Then, I guess I'll have some fun too. Whoever comes last in this assessment test in total points will be expelled. How's that for fun? Achako's own excitement that was beginning to rise came to an instant halt and was doused with an icy cold bucket of water. The one who ranks last gets expelled. There was a stunned silence from the vast majority of the gathered 21 students, and it was Achako herself who found herself speaking up, eyes narrowing. This is our first day here, but even if it weren't, isn't that seriously unreasonable? She demanded. But it wasn't for herself. Despite the stakes, and despite the nerves that were tingling in the pit of her stomach, she was sure she wouldn't rank last, because her quirk was incredibly helpful for most of these assessment tests. It was for the others she worried about. Her eyes flickered to the boy with wild red hair spiked like a mountain peak with two odd horn shapes styled into his hair at the front as well. If she was right and he was Red Riot, then his quirk only allowed him to harden his body. It wouldn't help at all with the assessments here except maybe the grip test. And what if others had quirks like that? That wasn't fair at all to them. Aizawa-sensei, though, just snorted at her words and spoke uncaringly of the tension and palpable fear of failure emanating from the gathered class, natural disasters, massive incidents, ego-mad villains, and more, calamities beyond reason. The world we live in during this day and age, as the definition of unreasonable, and to be a hero is to defy it and right them for the good of the people and society. Their sensei rebuked, let me tell you, as an educator of heroes, I have high standards. If you were counting on a friendly chat at the local burger joint after school, tough luck. From now on, for the next 3 years, if you manage stick it, all you can expect is one hardship after another. Achako noted his pitch-black eyes flicker to the right towards Kano, who in contrast to most of the class, was eyeing their sensei with a bland, unconcerned look on his face. Before his eyes flickered back to them, the first student I ever had was a 4-year-old brat. I was chosen specifically to teach him because my quirk could stop his. See, his quirk wasn't at all pleasant. Not only was it massively destructive, but it hurt and almost killed him too. But it didn't end there. Aizawa-sensei began a tale. I watched over that child for 3 months straight. Watched as he cried himself to sleep every night from the sheer agony of both his quirk and how hard he had to train to build his body up just to endure his quirk. Yet he didn't buckle and give in despite how many times I thought he would. He rose to the occasion and showed even back then the will needed for a true hero, the will to endure everything that came his way. He went plus ultra every damn day, and if you wannabes can't even match up to the will of a 4-year-old brat, then you aren't worthy to be heroes. It clicked for Achako. He was talking about Kano, right? While most of the class was stunned into silence by the tale, and Red Riot outright burst into tears declaring how manly such a child was, her eyes flickered over to Kano, and saw an absolutely aghast expression on his face now as he stared their sensei. His head turned and for a moment, her eyes met his own, and she blinked as his cheeks burned red and he looked away. Yeah, the man was definitely talking about Kano. It was a cute reaction to what almost amounted to Aizawa-sensei near bragging about him as a child ... but the heaviness of it struck her. Because she knew Kano, not all that well, but she knew him nonetheless, and that was perhaps why it struck her more, because she knew the person behind the story. He told me his quirk was really painful to use originally and nearly killed him. But ... it was that bad even after that. She bit her lip as she stared at him. It was hard to imagine with how big and strong he was, but he was only the same age as her, and there was once a time when he was just a small, scared boy in pain. I expect you all to rise to the occasion and overcome these trials I'm putting in front of you. Aizawa-sensei's bland look formed into a small, almost contemptuous smirk. Break your limits continuously, rise to the top and go plus ultra. Show me you have what it takes to be heroes. I'm super far behind. Achako realized, her fists clenching and a determined frown appearing on her face. It seemed Kano had been training to be a hero more or less since he was a toddler. Compared to that, her efforts were paltry. Plus ultra, break my limits, Achako's determined frown flipped up into a grin. Yeah, she could get behind that. If she wanted to be a hero that could provide for her parents, she needed to go all out, and then even further beyond. Kano, we'll be going through your assessments first. Aizawa-sensei turned to the number 1 ranked student. Show your classmates what plus ultra means. Kano sighed and looked over his shoulders, rolling his eyes in annoyance. What, am I a show pony or something now? He huffed, and Achako could still see a dusting of red on his cheeks. Beyond maybe his brother and the angry blonde guy, she was probably the only one who knew that it was him their sensei was talking about. But it seemed to still have embarrassed him a bit, which was kind of weird with how confident he always seemed to be. If the obnoxiously bright boots fit, sensei snorted back at him. Now, 50-meter dash, get to it and watch the lip or I'm expelling you for insubordination. Kano snorted right back at him, raising an eyebrow. Unimpressed. If you expel me, I'll just become a villain. How's that sound? He shot back. Achako heard a few gasps of shock behind her. Even somebody, the angry blonde she thought, gave a barking laugh. Just get in position, you brat. There was no hiding the fact that Aizawa-sensei was using Kano to set a standard. It wasn't fair at all. Achako knew that from the very beginning. but she also clocked onto something else. It might have seemed mean to show off all of Kano's results first, and show an overwhelming discrepancy in ability between him and most of the class, but it wasn't about showing them all a standard they needed to reach or surpass. It was about installing the will to try and chase those results regardless of how obscenely more powerful he was than most. The will of a hero to overcome the odds. And they were obscene results for sure. Softball pitch 4,405.8 meters. 50-meter dash 2.54 seconds. Grip strength test 999.99 kg. The grip test machine couldn't even fully measure his grip strength because it didn't even go that high. Even when it came to the endurance run, Ochako and the rest watched as he didn't even get tired. And Aizawa-sensei had to end it early because they'd be there all day before he lost any steam. He exploded forward on the 50-meter dash, twin orbs of light erupting from the soles of his feet, and propelling him forward explosively into a blinding dash, while he repeated the same with a leap for the long jump and cleared over 100 meters. They were overwhelming scores across the board. And they lit a fire in Ochako's belly when she finally got the chance to step up to the plate herself. Infinity. Holy cow, an infinity, she broke Midoriya's record. A pleased smile spread across Ochako's face at the result of her first test. The soft ball throw was tailor-made for her quirk. And then she was onto the 50-meter dash herself. And she put the work she'd done through the last few weeks of seeing some of Kano's basic muscle-building tutorials to work. Her clothes lightened, and then she lightened herself for just a brief moment as he pushed off from a crouched position. 6.26 seconds. And then she was onto the grip test. Not her best showing for sure, where she only got a 42 kilograms. The side jumps were a lot easier with her clothes and body lightened, and she aced the long jump by reaching over 7.5 meters. She struggled a bit with the seated toe touches, and was average among the class at the distance running even with her clothes lightened. They were out there for hours. But finally, it came to a close. And with bated breath, the class on nearly as a whole palpable with nerves. The results of the assessment were revealed. Godmnit. The angry blonde exploded with a roar almost immediately at the results displayed holographically above Aizawa-sensei's smart device. 1 Kano Midoriya. 2 Katsuki Bakugo. 3 Izuku Midoriya. 4 Momo Yaoyorozu. 5 Tenya Ida. 6 Shoto Todoroki. 7 Ochako Uraraka. 8 Mizo Shoji. 9 Mashiri Ayajiro. 10 Ajiro Kirishima. 11 Tsuyu Asui. 12 Mina Ishido. 13 Takoyami Fumikage. 14 Maita Minoru. 15 Rikido Sato. 16 Hantasiro. 17 Yuga Aoyama. 18 Koji Koda. 19 Toru Hagakure. 20 Kyoka Jiro. 21 Kaminari Denki. Bastard, making me number 2 again. The angry blonde, whose name was Bakugo, apparently raged. While another bright blonde literally slumped to his knees. Oh man, no, you gotta be kidding me. My first day here and I'm already getting kicked out. This sucks. He shouted, before trailing off into a defeated whimper. Ochako winced, a surge of pity welling up inside her for the boy. Kaminari was his name, and from what she'd overheard, he had a pretty powerful quirk that let him let loose blasts of electricity. Sadly though, nothing that would have helped with the assessment despite the power of his quirk. Not bad I suppose, least none of you buckled. I suppose you can all proudly state that you don't lose outright to a 4-year-old. Maybe, well, we'll see going forward I suppose. Aizawa-sensei mused blandly, before giving a grin. Oh by the way, that whole expulsion thing was a lie, a logical ruse if you will to pull out your best performances. Why? An explosion of outraged cries erupted from the class and Ochako was not at all ashamed to admit that she was amongst them. There was sigh at her side and Ochako looked to see the tall girl with the ebony black hair done up in a high ponytail shaking her head in exasperation. Come on you guys, use yours brains. She shook her head. Of course it was just a ruse. He's lying, Kano, who was standing not far away and hadn't really spoken much so far during the test, said, his eyes on Aizawa-sensei as he walked away while dismissing them for the day. Apparently they were getting a half day for their first day after pushing their limits. I don't blame you for not realizing it, Yaoyorozu, but if he thought any of you didn't have potential to be a hero, he would have expelled you on the spot. It was the girl's time to be surprised. Yaoyorozu froze and her mouth went agape. Are you serious? She asked, swallowing heavily. Believe me if you want, or not, but I'm wholly serious. Kano shrugged and walked away, following after Aizawa-sensei. Nice going out there. He praised Ochako as he passed, giving her a small smile. Yaoyorozu stared after him, mouth agape. Thanks. She beamed at him. He didn't stick around though, so she couldn't get to say anything more to him. Wait, where was he going actually? Aizawa-sensei was walking the completely different way from where they had to go to the changing rooms. Whatever, I'll ask him later, now's time to celebrate. She pumped her fist into the hair happily. 7th place, it wasn't first, but it wasn't bad either. Kaminari chose that time to cry out in joy that he wasn't getting expelled. For his first day in the hero course. That wasn't what I was expecting. Kano thought as he beat a hasty retreat from the rest of the class. Singled out on the first day, used to make an example and put the pressure on his classmates. Twice over. That wasn't cool at all. But, about as expected from old Red-Eye the grumpy bastard. It was bad enough his brother knew about it, and Bakugo. He couldn't miss the shit-eating grin the idiot was sporting when he heard Aizawa saying he cried himself to sleep every night. But going by the knowing look on Achako's face, she knew it too. The bastard, bringing up something like that in a class full of cute girls. Was he trying to ruin his reputation before he even built one? He followed around the building. Aizawa disappeared around a moment ago, shaking his head, and then paused as he found his first mentor looking off into the distance with an annoyed look on his face. Well, it looked like his usual grumpy, tired face, but he'd known the old grouch long enough to notice the difference. "The hell's wrong with you?" Kano asked, hands stuck in his pocket. He followed the man's gaze, but all he saw was a flash of bright yellow in the distance before it was gone. "Weird. Just a loud buffoon," Aizawa grunted, before turning to him. "What you want, brat? You and your class are dismissed for the day. You can head home." "Nice to see you too, sensei. I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking." Kano rolled his eyes. "I wanted to ask what the hell that was about. The show pony thing is one thing, but I'm not a fan of you telling them I used to cry myself to sleep like a little girl because I was too weak to handle my own quirk and needed special attention. You were 4, boohoo, get over it. You're not less manly because you cried from pain as a toddler brat." Aizawa huffed, "And nothing special about it. I've just found that most brats coming this school have an overinflated opinion of themselves. A lot like you actually, and comparing them to a 4-year-old and finding them wanting tends to rile them up." "Tends to." Kano blinked, before narrowing his eyes. "How many of your damn classes have you been telling my life story to?" "Don't be so dramatic. I never told them your life story, and I've been using it to rile up my classes for the last 4 years, he replied without any shame whatsoever. "Honestly, I'd think you'd be proud of it. You've got tens of dozens of hero applicants trying to live up to your little go-get attitude back when you were 4. Aren't you amazing?" "It might have sounded good, if you didn't sound so sarcastic," Kano replied, feeling a twitch appearing at his eye. "Oh, you've improved your observational abilities, I see. I thought you were still stuck on the path of punch good and all that. You're a veritable miniature All Might in the making." Aizawa smirked at him. "So what has you following me around here, or did you just come because I talked about you as a child?" He twitched, and the man's smirk grew. His distaste for All Might was well apparent to the man at this point. It was something they more or less shared, though for different reasons. Kano sighed in annoyance. "More or less," he admitted, though he left out the fact that he was beating a retreat from his classmates because he was embarrassed a few of them had figured it out. Hopefully none of the 3 that did know it was about him told anyone else. "The logic you run on doesn't compute with me at all, Kano." The erasure hero shook his head. "When it comes to anything else, you're as illogically confident as they come. But when it's about the fact you cried because of the absurd pain you went through as a child, you get all embarrassed, even when the annoying problem girl asked about you as a kid." Yeah. He'd almost forgotten Kami had wanted to meet Aizawa and hear all about what he was like during the time he spent with him. And Aizawa, being as blunt as he was, had no problem revealing any of it, and he couldn't even complain because he'd needed the man's help at the time to negotiate for his plans at Shiksu. The man didn't seem to get that the fact he cried his eyes out so goddamn much back then was embarrassing as a man, and he didn't want his girlfriend to hear about it. "What if I told Miss Joke you wet yourself a bunch growing up?" Kano fired back at the man. "What about it?" Aizawa raised an eyebrow at him, giving him a bland look. "Why the heck would I care about what that annoying woman thought of me as a child, or even now for that matter? Unflappable as ever, huh?" "Speaking of annoying women though," his mentor continued, a frown appearing on his face, "I've been patient enough about it, and even got you special permission to record your entrance exam. How about you tell me why you came here instead of Shiksu after all the work I went to help you with your odd little plans for attending there? And what the tension is about between you and your brother." He already noticed, huh? Was he watching the class when I first came in? Kano wondered. He hadn't noticed at all. Then again, his mentor had always been a stealthy old bastard. His quirk came in a few months ago. You probably already saw what it can do at the entrance exam. Power type, absurdly powerful, a lot like yours. Seems to be able to regulate its power, but the maximum it hurts him just like yours did. In fact, it might even more powerful than yours from what I saw. If that thing activated when he was a child like yours, he probably would have killed himself. Aizawa mused aloud, before nodding. "So you're here to what? Keep an eye on him? I assume it was asked of you by your mother, though the question remains, why did he not just go to Shiksu?" Kano clicked his tongue in annoyance. "Because he's obsessed with All Might. He's the ultimate freaking fanboy of that twit," he replied. "No matter what my mom said to him, he was adamant about coming here because All Might came here, and probably because he found out somehow he was gonna be teaching here. He wouldn't see reason, and my mom was terrified for him, so she begged me to come here and look after him, and since I chose my brother over her, Kami broke up with me." Completely illogical, from all the 3 of them. The annoying problem girl for obvious reasons, your mother knows I teach here, and your brother. Aizawa's brows furrowed and he frowned in thought, before shaking his head. "I suppose that explains why you're here then. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "As far as Izuku goes, nothing. The ball is in his court. If he wants to make amends, he better man up for once and apologize straight to my face. Kano shrugged. Other than that, my plans haven't changed much. I'm going to get stronger, get more fans, get more popular, and become the best hero I can be and live my life. It's illogical and immature to let it fester. If he's too scared to apologize to you first, and you know it, you should just get it over with yourself and set things straight. Letting it fester will only make it worse in the end. Aizawa sighed, rolling his eyes. But I know you well enough to know that you are very illogical at the best of times and always let your feelings rule you. Not all the time, Kano shrugged, and yet you love me anyway, sensei. Why else would you constantly brag about me, your first student to all the rest? If he was going to use his embarrassing crybaby stories, no reason why he couldn't either, right? Like root canal, Aizawa responded dryly. Now, if there's nothing else, brat, I've got stuff to do, so off you go and head home. Yeah, Kano snorted, rolling his eyes. See you tomorrow, I guess. He bid his mentor goodbye and returned back the way he came. He didn't see his mentor narrow his eyes. What is that illogical girl playing at? He wondered quietly as he stared at his first student and what many would call his protege is back. After his talk with his mentor, Kano made his way back into the main school building following the path of his classmates and soon arrived at the boys' changing room assigned to Class 1A. He barely stepped into the classroom before King, a boy in the middle of buttoning up his shirt, with wild red hair, grinned at him, showing off twin rows of sharp shark-like teeth. Where'd you go, man? You disappeared after the assessment. All right, 2 of the Imperial Army were in his class. This guy, Kirishima, and the tiny guy with ball-like hair. Red Riot and Grape God, he was sure, 2 of the most active in his chats. Yo, Kano tossed him a wave and walked over to the locker where he stashed his stuff and began pulling off the UA gym uniform he was wearing. I had to talk to Aizawa-sensei about something. I gotcha. Kirishima clapped his hands together, then pumped his fist. Man King, I gotta say, I've seen what you can do before but never in person. Your scores were crazy manly. As expected of the man who could nab a babe like Kami, Grape God, or rather Minta nodded sagely, as if it all made sense just because of his ex-girlfriend. He's truly a man worth following the path of. I wouldn't have these guns without him. The little guy was clad in only a pair of boxers and flexed his tiny arms and stomach, showing off a faint definition. Just as much as pervert in person, huh? Kano snorted, a bit amused in spite of himself, and pulled his top off. And Mina slumped almost immediately. Damn you sexy bastard. The tiny boy glared enviously at his abs. You trying to flex on me? Not really, Kano shrugged, before smirking. If I was, it would have looked something like this. He curled one hand into a fist and raised it up to head level, and then brought the other one up above his head, 2 fingers pointing to the sky and tensed. Gah. Mina flinched away as if physically struck and tears budded in his eyes. God damn you freaking Chad. He was completely overreacting, but it was amusing. So Kano, being Kano, flexed his chest muscles, making his right pec rise, before lowering it and doing it with the left, then repeating it at a rapid speed. Nuo. Mina dropped to his knees. I give up. Stop flexing on me. I'll die at this rate, King. Grape, you're such a weirdo sometimes, Kirishima snorted, before looking Kano up and down with a grin. Gotta say though, King, those are some super manly ass muscles. You gotta take me on your workouts and show me your diet sometime. I seriously wanna bulk up. Hey, question, a slim guy with dark blonde hair, Kaminari if Kano remember right, spoke up. I thought his name was Kano. Well, Midoriya, but we have 2. Are you guys related? You look kinda alike. But yeah, anyway, what's with the King thing? Kano's eyes flickered over to his brother who was on the opposite side of the changing room. Beside the tall broad glasses wearing guy, Ada and his brother froze. I confess, I'm a bit curious about that myself. Ada nodded, chopping his arm through the air weirdly over and over. Midoriya did refer to you as brother earlier, and this King business is odd. Put a sock in it, glasses, Bakugo scoffed, slamming his locker door shut in annoyance as he finished up putting his school uniform back on. They're twins, you retards. How about you actually look at their damn face? It's not had to see, the bitchy vibrator is just bigger cause he's been a musclehead all his life, and that stupid King bullshit is cause he has a retarded WebTube account and his loser followers call themselves the Imperial Army. What atrocious language. Ada gasped, staring at him wide-eyed. Hey, we ain't losers. You're just jealous cause King slapped your ass and put you in second place. Mina stuck his tongue out at Bakugo mockingly. Bakugo's head whipped over and he glared murderously at the little grape-headed boy. The fuck was that, you little bitch? He snarled, small explosions crackling in his palms. Yep. Mina darted behind Kano's leg and hid behind him. Pussy, Bakugo scoffed, then glared at Kano. So, you didn't answer my question earlier, vibrator dick. Where the hell is Fat Lips? That bitch was practically riding you wherever you went and you were all about shitsetsu, unlike shitty third place Deku over there. He jabbed his thumb at Izuku, who flinched. Izuku opened his mouth to speak, but Kano beat him to it. Shove it up your ass, dipshit. She broke up with your loser ass, huh? A shit-eating grin spread across Bakugo's face, and going by your little attitude with shitty Deku, it's got something to do with him. What, did she cheat on you with him? You a little cuck now, vibrator dick. Kachin, it was my fault, but it wasn't anything like tea, Izuku sputtered and tried to refute him. Too bad for him, Kano was absolutely livid. The fuck did you just call me, you useless little walking talking inferiority complex? Kano snarled, fists clenched and vibrating white bubble of lift shimmering into existing with a buzzing rage. You still crying bullshit because you're a weak piece of trash. How about I put you in your place properly today and smash your damn bitch face in? He began walking forward, the air around him rippling and cracking. Let's see you try. Bakugo snarled back, palms flaring out and filling with crackling light. Enough. Ada chopped his hand forward in front of Bakugo and blocked him off. This is a school for heroes, not for petty little grudges. Both of you give it a rest. I don't know what is going on between you, and do not have the full context to weigh in on matters as serious as these, but do not think for a moment I will allow you two to fight it out like hooligans here. He's right, King. Kirishima grabbed Kano around one shoulder while Izuku grabbed him by the other. What he said was complete bullshit. And we know that. Totally unmanly. Don't get yourself into trouble. Why yeah, Kano, you already gave up enough. You don't need to lose more over a silly fight. Izuku pleaded with him. For a split moment, while he was glaring into Bakugo's furious red eyes, the urge was there to toss them off of him and just go pace the little bastard. It was a long time coming after all. He'd always let the bastard off easy after kicking his ass before. Then he took a deep breath and he let it go. He winced as he dispersed the quake bubbles around his palms and stepped back. Fine, fine. He relented. There was an audible sigh of relief from many of the other boys in the room as Bakugo clicked his tongue and stormed out. Holy shat, that was tense. Kaminari gave a shaky laugh. Darkness almost consumed us whole, the bird-headed boy, Takoyami murmured. A bloodbath for the ages indeed. Huh. Kano shook his head and wiggled out of Kirishima and Izuku's arms. Sorry about that. I lost my temper there for a minute. He apologized with a sigh. I'll say. Maida nodded his head vigorously. King, you're fucking terrifying. I almost pissed and shit myself at the same time. The heck was that about? The tall and muscular big-lipped guy, Sato, ran a hand through his spiky hair, sweat trailing down his chin. Was it me or did that Bakugo guy have a serious chip on his shoulder and was looking to start a fight there? Kano just shrugged. He didn't feel like going into Bakugo's list of many issues. It would just make him even angrier, so he got back to changing into his uniform. Kachin and Kanai have never got along, Izuku replied with a sheepish laugh, rubbing the back of his head. Kachin has wanted to be the #1 hero for as long as I can remember and is super proud of his abilities. But because Kanai has always been stronger than him ... well, they kinda always get into fights, mostly started by Kachin. And he conveniently left out that he didn't give a crap about Bakugo's ambition, and they only came to blows initially that first time because the bastard always bullied Izuku. Idiot. Kano rolled his eyes. So you two are brothers, huh? Kaminari laughed, changing the subject. Superpowered brothers getting the top spot and the third spot in the class, a family of monsters, huh? No. I still have a long way to go. Izuku frantically waved his hands, an embarrassed flush appearing on his cheeks. I'm nowhere near as strong as Kanai. I wouldn't last a minute against him in a fight. Not even a minute. Ida sputtered, but, with that, what did you call it? Full cowling 5%. You're almost as fast as me, and when you used your full strength, which admittedly hurt you quite badly, you destroyed that massive 0-pointer with one blow. Damn, no kiddin'. That's manly as hell. Kirishima pumped his fist into the air with a grin, just like Kano then. Brothers for sure. I mean, get this, Ada. King absolutely demolished one with ease, as if it were just one of those one-pointers. It's crazy how strong he is. Kano only listened to the conversation with a half ear as he got continued changing, and before long, everyone had pretty much filed out of the room, Izuku giving him a long look before he left with the glasses wearing Ada. Though Mina and Kirishima stuck around until he was finished changing. So King, how about since we're classmates we exchange numbers? Kirishima grinned at him as he hoisted his bag onto his shoulder. Duo. Me too. Mina eagerly nodded. We should hit up an arcade on the weekend and hang out and pick up chicks. Sure. Kano shrugged, ignoring that last part. He was in for a surprise though when they stepped out of the changing room and found Ochako leaning on the wall opposite the changing room, clad in her school uniform waiting. You take an awful long time to get ready, you know, Ochako pointed out as soon as he stepped out of the changing room. Honestly, I thought for a bit you'd already left and I missed you. Oh, it's the Infinity Girl, Kirishima noted. She grinned. The name's Ochako Uraraka, Kirishima-kun and Maida-kun, right? She introduced herself and noted. She knows my name. Mina blinked, excitement flashing in his eyes. Well, you both kinda stand out hanging around Kano-kun, she shrugged, grin still in place. You're Red Riot and that grape guy, right? Kano blinked, surprised. Yeah, that's me. Kirishima flashed her a thumbs up. So does that mean you're a member of the Imperial Army too? I mean, I guess. Ochako shrugged and met Kano's eyes. You were telling me about your Wedoob account before, remember, at the entrance exams. I got curious and checked it out and found you during that stream you did at the beach and ended up checking out some of your workout tutorials. Thanks for that, by the way. I think they gave me a decent bit of help for today. Her grin turned impish as she looked at Kano. Should I call you King too? She asked cheekily. Kano snorted in amusement. I mean if you want. He shrugged. Damn King, your game is too powerful. Minda pouted. Kano rolled his eyes. So what were you waiting on us for? He asked. Ochako shrugged back. I was hoping to talk to you about something. But if you're busy it can wait, I guess. She replied, glancing at the other two boys beside him. Well actually, how about we all head out to a local place and hang out? Minda grinned at her, his eyes blatantly lingering on her chest. I'm sure we can. He was cut off by Kirishima lifting him by the back of his blazer, while rolling his eyes. We can pick up where we left off tomorrow, King. Seems you know your Araka better than us, so we'll leave you two to it, he said, giving Kano a knowing look. He was reading far too much into it. But Kano nodded nonetheless. Sure, I'll see you both then. Damn you Red Riot, why you always gotta bust my balls. Minda whined as Kirishima carried him off. You not content with just in King's chat anymore, you gotta do it in real life too. You don't have mod powers here, bastard. Both Kano and Ochako stared after them nonplussed as the small boy kicked and whined in the taller red-haired boy's grasp, before they disappeared around a corner, and out of sight. He might be even worse in person. Ochako shivered a bit, breaking the silence. Yeah, he'd need to keep an eye on that guy. A follower of his or not, the guy was like a tiny little condensed ball of lust. If he bothers you or any of the other girls, just let me know and I'll sort him out. Kano nodded. If nothing else, he was pretty good at intimidating people when needed. I'll keep that in mind, Ochako mused, before turning back to him. So, you doing okay? She asked, giving him a concerned look. He returned it with a confused one. Yeah. Why wouldn't I be? He asked back. Oh, well that's good. Ochako blinked. You didn't look too happy with Aizawa-sensei earlier. That little kid he was talking about before, that was you, wasn't it? He froze for a moment, embarrassment beginning to burn on his cheeks, before he sighed and looked up, running a hand through his short but thick green hair. Ah, so you did figure that out, huh? He noted, hiding a grimace. Yeah, Ochako nodded. You told me before, right? On the day of the entrance exam that when you unlocked your quirk the first time it almost killed you, and even when you were showing it off to me, with that tiny bit of it, that even it still hurt you ... And well, with the way Aizawa-sensei singled you out and was looking at you, I kind of figured he was talking about you. Yeah, Kano admitted with a sigh. Apparently the grouch has been using that story for a while now to give his classes a kick up the ass, because being compared to a 4-year-old and found lacking seems to hurt their egos and make them try harder. Ochako giggled, well without the context of things. I mean, can you imagine training all this time to go to hero school and the first thing your hero teacher tells you is that he taught a 4-year-old that makes you look pathetic in comparison? She said, a mock grimace spreading across her face. That would be embarrassing. It's pretty embarrassing for me too, Kano shrugged. I seriously didn't need him telling everyone I literally cried myself to sleep all the time as a kid just because I was a weakling that couldn't control or withstand my own quirk. He admitted, a frown appearing on his face as he looked away from her, his cheeks reddening for sure. It galled him to admit such a thing aloud, but she'd already figured it out, so the least he could as a man was face his embarrassment head on. Honestly, he was a pretty talentless guy in the grand scheme of things. He wasn't as smart or intuitive as his brother, for instance, and his thought process was far simpler than his own. His name and attacks was clear enough proof of that. Not to mention, most of the stress his mother had been through and resulted in her current situation was big in part because of him. The only things he really had going for him was being strong and being reckless enough to chase whatever he thought he needed to. It's not anything to be embarrassed about, you know. You were only 4. Ochako pointed out. Kano shook his head. Started when I was 4 maybe. He pointed out with a sigh, but it was a good few years before I fully got tough enough to withstand my quirk and not cry like a little baby over it. That's not really. Ochako trailed off before she cupped her chin, eyes lighting up. Oh, this is a macho thing, isn't it? Kano wasn't sure how to reply to that. Mostly because she wasn't really wrong, but at the same time it kind of undermined it. He had his pride after all. I don't really get it, Ochako mused, shaking her head and laughing. Well, I only really wanted to check on you and see if you were doing all right. Yeah, I'm fine. Kano nodded. That was about all he could really say about it. It was embarrassing to have others know, but he'd deal with it. That was the only thing he could do. Well, that's good, she beamed. So, we should get going then, right? You want to walk together? I would, but I have my bike, remember? He reminded her. Oh, right, so you do. I totally forgot about that. Ochako clapped her hands. Man, wish I could afford one of those. It would be so convenient. You want a ride? If I remember right, that store we met at is on my way. Kano asked. If you live around there I could drop you off pretty easily. Oh, really? Ochako's eyes lit up. Then yeah, totally. It'll save me using up a spot on my rail card. Wait, you live alone? Kano's voice floated back to her. Currently, for the second time in her life, Ochako found herself hanging on the boy from behind as she rode behind him on his motorcycle. Bessie, he'd called it for some reason, and fondly, though he'd clammed up when she asked why he called it that. Yeah, I'm from Kansai, Ochako nodded. My parents run a construction company out there, and well, it's too far to get from there to UA every day, so I had to come over here. Yeah, that's quite the trek to make every day and would cost quite a bit on train fare, that's for sure. Kano's head clad and his helmet bounced up and down as he nodded. Still living by yourself already, huh? He mused, sounding impressed. He really shouldn't have been. What about you? I know you have Deku-kun, your little brother, and I think you mentioned your mom too before. She changed the subject. Deku-kun? He asked, sounding surprised. Why are you calling him that? Oh, right. He said the angry blonde Bakugo used it to insult him, right? He told me to call him it after I said it sounded like the Japanese word for you can do it. I didn't know it was an insult at first until you told me. She'd met him and Ada when they were leaving the changing rooms while she was waiting for Kano. Is that so? Kano trailed off for a moment, before sighing and shaking his head. Well, whatever floats his boat, I guess. It's just us three really. Well, we have our dad, but we haven't seen him God knows how long. He works overseas. Awkward. It seemed she wasn't the only one with family issues, even if Kano's was different from monetary-wise. There was a bit of an awkward silence between them then, before Ochako coughed to break it and blurting out the first thing that came to mind. So, why do you want to become a hero? She asked. That was a pretty standard question to ask now they were both in the hero course, right? Nothing all that grand to be honest, Kano replied as he slowed down the motorcycle to turn a corner. I felt guilty because of all the stress my mom went through because of me and my brother. And the one thing I really have going for me is being strong. Fighting is all my useless quirk is good for, not like yours. So I decided to become a strong and popular hero and get rich so I could spoil her and let her live the best possible life. Achako's eyes widened in shock. She wasn't expecting that answer like that all. Her lips curved into a smile, a feeling of kinship warming her stomach. His reason for being a hero wasn't all that different from her own after all. She'd been embarrassed about her own reason for becoming a hero. But if someone like Kano was doing it too, someone a shoo-in to go really high as a hero with his drive and power, then it wasn't bad for her to be doing it as well, right? What about you? He asked, looking at her over his shoulder, his eyes meeting hers through the gold visor of his helmet. Same as yours actually, she smiled at him. I told you my family owns a construction company, right? But, thing is, we've not been getting many jobs, and my family is flat broke. The only reason I can even be here right now is 'cause my dad built the building my apartment is friends with owner, who is letting me rent it for free. For as long as I can remember, my folks have looked exhausted yet they do everything they can for me, she continued. So I'm definitely going to become a great hero and make a lot of money so I can let them take it easy. Kano slowed the bike down there as she finished and an approving smile appeared on his face. That's an amazing reason to be a hero. He said, what's the point of even being a hero after all, if you can't even do something good for the people closest to you? If you can't even do that, there's no point in you being a hero, I think. Achako nodded, feeling her cheeks heat up a bit at the smile he was giving her. He opened his mouth to continue, but before he could a small cute yip sound cut him off. On instinct, Ochako's head turned to the sound, and noticed Kano had slowed down right in front of a small tight alley junction about 3 feet wide between two office buildings. And there sitting in a box in the tiny cramped alley, was a small cute little puppy with its head peeking up over the rim of the box. Did somebody abandon a puppy? She wondered, a scowl appearing on her face at the thought. What kind of evil person would leave such a small, defenseless thing out in an alleyway of all things? Maybe, Kano nodded, and flicked off the power on his bike and shifted down the kickstand with his foot in one smooth motion. One sec, I'll see. Before she could even do anything herself, Kano was already on the move and left her on the motorcycle and making his way over to the puppy in the alley. Though with how tall and broad he was, it was a bit of a tight squeeze for him. Unbidden, Ochako slipped off the bike and followed after him and peered over his shoulder as he crouched down to get closer to eye level with the small dog, probably to make it feel more secure and less threatened. That was a thing she'd seen on television once, she was sure. Making yourself seem smaller to animals because it made you appear less threatening. Hey little guy, Kano outright cooed to the small puppy, reaching in to gently hold his hand out to it, palm and letting it sniff his hand. What are you doing out here all alone? It was a bit weird to hear Kano lower his voice like that. It wasn't like she knew him all that well, they'd only known each other a short time and she'd seen more of him in his videos than in real life, but at the same time, because of that, she was very much used to him being boldly outspoken, and while not shouting or anything, he spoke with a confidence that made his voice seem booming and carry over others. It's cute, she thought, putting those thoughts out of mind as she peered over his shoulder at the tiny puppy. She didn't know what kind of dog breed it was, but it was cute and fluffy with orange-brown fur covering most of its body, and its lower face and belly having cream fur, with super fluffy curly tail. Looks like an Akita, I think. Kano apparently read her mind as the small puppy began licking his palm. And I don't see any collar or anything in the box that could identify an owner, so it's most likely been abandoned. The scowl returned to her lips. That's horrible, Ochako near growled. Who would abandon a little defenseless cute thing like this? Some lazy pathetic bastard, I'd say usually. Kano replied without turning around as he reached down with his other hand now that the puppy had apparently taken to him a little bit, and began stroking its head. But Akitas aren't cheap, especially newborn puppies. This little guy could go for a good 700,000 yen easily if being sold by a good breeder. Ochako blinked, before her eyes flew wide open. 700,000 yen. She sputtered, "Dogs are that expensive." She gaped. And he sure was quick to know the price of one. "I mean, you can get some for free from shelters and such, but otherwise people make businesses out of pets. That's pretty standard, and Akita are amazing look dogs with a long lifespan, so they go for quite a bit." Kano shrugged before looking over his shoulder at her with a small smile. "I always wanted a dog growing up, me and Izuku both, but our apartment complex doesn't allow pets, and even at that, growing up it was a bad idea for a pet to be around me before I got more control over my quirk." Oh, his quirk again, huh? Poor Kano. It always seemed to come back to his quirk with him, didn't it? "I always wanted one too," Ochako admitted, leaning over his shoulder to reach down and gently touch her padded fingertips to the small puppy's head and stroke it. "You were so fluffy and soft. But like I said earlier, my family is flat broke. We couldn't afford to look after a dog. Sucks for both of us, huh?" Kano mused with a little chuckle. "I guess," Ochako agreed with a shrug. She tried not to let thoughts like that get into her head. Because as poor as her family was, she was extremely grateful for all they did for her. It wasn't bad to her, just was. And was something she would change in the future for sure. So what do we do about this little guy?" "There's a few things we could do," Kano mused. "We can't be sure this little guy wasn't dog-napped and then just abandoned. 'Cause like I said, Akitas are pretty expensive. But at the same time, if we put a notice out for an abandoned one, because they're expensive, anyone could just claim they lost it, and with how young it is with no collar, there's no proof of ownership they could really provide. Which leaves just taking him to a shelter." He shook his head. "I'd take him home with me, but like I said, my apartment complex doesn't allow pets." Ochako clicked her tongue, seeing his point. "Mine does, but I wouldn't be able to afford taking care of him," she admitted herself. She only had a budget of 25,000 yen to get by on a month after all, and if she remembered right, Akita got pretty big, so would be pretty expensive to feed, and that wasn't including other things the dog would need like a bed, and chew toys and a leash and poop bags and stuff. "Wait, it's a boy." Kano's words clicked for her. "Yeah, he's a cute little boy," Kano laughed lightly, and peered at the small puppy thoughtfully. "What if you took him, and I pay for everything he needs?" Half an hour later, Ochako found herself sitting on her small couch, with a tiny cute little Akita puppy napping on her lap. He was so cute, she had to resist the urge to pet him again. But she didn't want to wake him up. Kano was currently shopping. Why did I accept? She ran a hand through her hair. It was logical at first, she was sure. She loved dogs, she always wanted one, but couldn't afford one. Kano loved dogs apparently as well, and also always wanted one, but couldn't keep one because of where he lived. She had the space, he had the money. It seemed a perfect match. But then she remembered something else. Wouldn't that technically make the dog both of theirs? After all, it went without saying that Kano would be coming up to see the cute little fluff ball whenever he could. Which meant he would be coming to her apartment, a lot. A boy would be coming into her apartment a lot. Her tiny apartment. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea. A knock on her door drew her from her thoughts and her back went ramrod straight. "No backing out now, Ochako," she mused. At the sound of the knocking on the door, the tiny Akita puppy awoke and let out a little yipping bark. Calm down, calm down." Ochako soothed the little puppy, stroking her hand over his head. Standing up off the couch and carrying the puppy in her arms, Ochako made her way to the door and opened it, to find Kano on the other side, arms full with multiple completely full bags. A lot of bags. "Hey, I think I've got everything we need." He grinned at her. "Can I come in?" he asked. Ochako stared at him for a moment, before nodding. "Sure, come on in." She nodded, stepping aside. "Well, no going back now, she should just enjoy it." "Thanks." Kano's grin widened a bit and he stepped in, setting the bags and his arms down so he could begin unfastening those boots of his to take off. Ochako closed the door while he did, and then once done they both made their way into her living room. If it could even be called that. The entire apartment was tiny. Beyond the hallway leading into the singular room in the apartment, which had a storage cupboard where she kept her clothes and such, a door leading to her bathroom and a small kitchenette. The main single room of the apartment was both her living room and bedroom, containing a small couch, a small single bed, a small desk where her PC sat, and a small table where her tiny 30-inch television sat. If Kano had any thoughts on her tiny apartment, he didn't say anything about it. Instead, he got right down to business as he set the bags down in the main room. "So I wasn't sure exactly what we needed in full or not, so I just grabbed everything that came to mind," he said as he began unloading the bags, and Ochako sat down on the couch with the little puppy, both of them watching him curiously. Well, for her it was more nonplussed. "I grabbed a collar, though might need to replace it going forward, probably one with a name tag and stuff. An adjustable harness and leash, a nice soft dog bed, some chew toys, not sure what kind he'd like, so I grabbed a few. I got a bunch of bowls just in case you wanted to leave washing some for another time after they were used. Some cleaning stuff in case he does the toilet in the house, and I wasn't sure what kind of food he'd like, so I kind of just grabbed a bunch of different puppy food and His mouth practically ran a mile a minute, and Ochako honestly found herself near gaping at the massive pile of things he pulled from the bags. Honestly, he reminded her of his brother. He'd been muttering up a storm to himself earlier during the quirk assessment they went through today at school. How much did you spend? She couldn't help but ask, staring wide-eyed. Not that much, Kano shrugged. I think the total was just over 60,000 yen. I have the receipt somewhere, I think. Huh. That was literally more than twice the budget she had monthly for herself for living expenses like food and toiletries. And he just dropped it casually without batting an eye. That's actually quite a lot. Ochako pointed out. I can afford it, don't worry about it. Kano waved her off with a smile. Besides, what good is money if you don't spend it on things that actually matter like this, cutie? He said as he leaned forward, basically crouching in front of her, head over her lap, and rubbed his nose against the puppy's. Did he even realize how close to her he was? He laughed joyfully as the little puppy licked his nose. You're a bold little cutie, aren't you? Who's a good boy? You are. Yes, you are. He cooed. Ochako shook her head. For such a big muscular guy, with such a destructive quirk, it sure was odd to seeing him putting on a soft cooing baby voice for a puppy. You really couldn't judge a book by its cover, huh? Though him spending that amount so easily did bring a question to mind she'd been wondering about. How much are you actually making from Wedoob if you can spend that much casually? She asked. She tried checking up how much people made on it, but places she checked was full of conflicting information. It had to be a decent amount, because by his own words he didn't come from like a rich family or something. The whole reason he wanted to be a hero was to make money like her for his family, to provide them with a good, relaxing, and enjoyable life. A pretty decent amount, Kano shrugged. My bank account is sitting at just over 105 million yen at the moment. And right now, with my popularity being up thanks to the entrance exam, I'm making about 5 million yen a month at the moment. If Ochako had been drinking anything at that moment, she would spit it out all over his face in shock. 100 million yen. She gaped, and 5 million a month. What the heck? You make that much on Wedoob? She figured it was quite a bit, but nothing like that. That was way more than both of her parents' income put together. Actually, she didn't think a lot of actual heroes even made that much. At the very least, the lower-ranking ones didn't. It varies between people and what kind of videos they make. Kano shrugged and began explaining idly as he pet the puppy. Hero stuff is one of the most popular type of videos you can make though. So videos about them earn more on average even if they have the same amount of views and stuff as say a video about exploring abandoned places, or the like. And I luckily managed to stand out initially because of my quirk. If nothing else, it's eye-catching. Though it took quite a while before I started making decent money from it. I've been working on that channel for 3 years now after all. Even so ... that was crazy. And honestly, incredible. It said a lot about him that even before he had made it to UA he was already making so much money through his own efforts. He was pretty amazing. She had to admire the sheer hard work and dedication it must have taken for him to get to this point. Ochako had to admit, she was a little jealous, and a little self-conscious. He made her feel a little ... lazy in comparison to the efforts he made. But that just means she just had to try even harder and put more work into things going forward so she could catch up to him. You think I could do something like that as well? Ochako found herself asking as she bit her lip. I know it's not really feasible for me to make the same as you from it considering how long and how much you've been doing it. But there's still 3 years of UA until we become pros and I can actually make money out of it. At her question, Kano looked up and met her eyes with a raised eyebrow. Probably, he said. I got lucky in it due to my quirk being very eye-catching, and while yours is awesome, it doesn't really stand out as much. But connections help and I could probably grease the wheels for you a bit by letting people know about you in my videos here and there. Plus, you're a cute girl so that'll definitely draw in people as well. Despite herself, her cheeks warmed up at him calling her cute, before what he said really clicked for her. Like mine, you mean? She asked, with a grimace. Yeah, you'll get a lot like him if you do it. Kano laughed. I can't count the amount of horny comments and crap I got just because of my old girlfriend appearing in some of my videos. And some of them were just pure creepy. That sounded horrible. She couldn't and didn't want to imagine what kind of things got said to him about Kami. Well, Ochako really appreciated how open he was about it. Even then it might not be a bad thing to try out anyway. She mused. Though she didn't really have the equipment, or could afford it even to go about it right now. Maybe if she cut down on her food even more and saved a little more each month she could afford a camera or something in a few months. Well, give it some thought. You need a theme and stuff going forward. Like mine is my training to be a hero, Kano pointed out. And once you're ready I can help you out if you want. Alright, Ochako nodded. In the meantime, what do we do about this little guy? I mean, he still needs a name, and won't we need to get him checked out at a vet? And then what about you coming to see him and stuff? It was a whole lot to cover. As far as the vet goes, we can go now and see if they'll see us if you want. And I can come by and see him every day, Kano pointed out. I mean I could pop by in the mornings and give you a lift to school and bring you back. And then I can see him then for a little while pretty much every day. Every day. Ochako blinked. Like, every day. A boy would be coming to her house every single day. She would be riding behind him on a motorcycle to and from school. But on the other hand, it would save her using up any of her rail card points, which meant she would save money. At that point, who cared about rumors? Doesn't need to be every day if you don't want, Kano shrugged, just putting the option out there. I don't really have any problem with it, Ochako admitted. That just leaves a name then, right? Pretty much, Kano grinned. Any suggestions? Ochako looked down at the fluffy, warm, soft little puppy resting on her lap. Machai, she offered. You really are crazy about Machai, aren't you? Kano burst out into laughter. Should change that Infinity Girl nickname you got today to Machai Girl. I don't want to hear that from you, Kebab Boy. Ochako shot back, pouting at him. Jin Bubigawara's eyes snapped open as the voice of his life coach thundered from the phone sitting on his nightstand beside his bed. It was just a cut-off audio clip he took from a video on WebTube and made it his wake-up alarm for his phone. He'd made it an ingrained habit nowadays to listen to his advice. It was thanks to that young boy's videos he'd managed to turn his life around and actually make something of himself after all. Ah, that feels good. Jin groaned as he sat up in his bed and stretched out his arms. Shit, this sucks. I want to go back to bed. I'm so tired. As always, his mouth moved without his input and said something completely counterproductive to what he'd said previously. But with practiced ease, he ignored it and shuffled over to the edge of his large and soft king-sized bed and stretched out his legs. The first stretches of the morning were important for the day after all. With that done, he jumped out of bed and dropped down onto his hands and feet and began his morning push-ups. Not only would it get his muscles revving, but it also perfect for clearing his mind. Just a simple 5 sets of 50, he could do more of course, but it wasn't optimal to push himself to his limits from the get-go after just waking up. This was just his starter course for the day. Once that was done, he stood up, wiping the sweat from his brow, before holding his other hand out. A clay-like substance formed from his palm and erupted into sludgy pile that then quickly rose up and formed into a perfect copy of himself. Can you get breakfast? He asked his clone. Of course I can, you go have a shower, dumbass, his clone snorted at him. Can't show up to work smelling a bum. He added, before walking away and making his way through the apartment to the kitchen. Jin rolled his eyes. Such an attitude he had. But it was far better than how things were before, where he couldn't even make copies of himself anymore because of the trauma he'd put himself through. Entirely his own fault and something that would have no doubt crippled him for life or put him down a seriously bad path, if he hadn't come across the WebTube channel of the future top hero in training Imperial. Nostalgia got the better of him while thinking about it, and Jin made his way over to the desk where his high-tech computer rig with multiple screens was set up. He booted it up, smiling as it finished in just a couple of seconds, and he brought up his browser and went straight to his bookmarks and clicked on the top one. The title of the video was simple: Let's Talk About Quirks, Am I Lucky? It was a video Imperial made early into his WebTube career when a lot of haters were lambasting him and saying he was just lucky to have such an amazing quirk and he wasn't anything special without it. Complete and utter hogwash, Imperial was amazing. And this video was picture proof of why, and the reason specifically why Jin was his #1 fan. He watched as Imperial opened up greeting the watchers, before getting straight down to business. That was something he liked about Imperial. He was a straight-to-the-point, honest kind of guy. Granted, he liked a lot about Imperial, but he liked that one a lot. So, a lot of you guys think I'm really lucky to have my quirk, Imperial mused. He was sitting atop an apartment building of some sort, holding his camera in one hand. This was before he'd gotten his awesome drone camera after all, and you're all correct, but not for the reasons you might think. Kano gave the camera grin. I've given you guys a basic overview of my quirk before, but not really got into the deeper parts of it. I didn't really want to go into the weaknesses of it and all that after all. He laughed, before shrugging. Well, as you know, it's called Power Quake, and it causes quakes anywhere I want. But it's a bit more complicated than that. See, it's a super enhanced version of my mother's quirk, the ability to attract small things. In my case, the range is massively enhanced, and at the very same time, it also pushes at the same time. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering what the big deal there is, but the fact of the matter is, my quirk targets the smallest things of all, the atoms and such that make up everything, and it reflects back onto me. This means when I use my quirk, it's pulling on the very bits that make up my body, my bones, my muscles, my organs. And when I first activated it, Power Quake almost killed me. It ripped apart my bones, my organs and my muscles and then squished them all back together. I was saved by luck because a passing hero saw it happen and we were close to UA, where that hero rushed me to and got me healed by Recovery Girl. But even then, it was pure luck I managed to hang on long enough to get there. He paused then to let his words sink it, and the sheer weight of it always struck Jin. Like near all children who awaken their quirks, Imperial awakened his when he was just 4 years old. That meant, as a 4-year-old, he experienced the agony of his entire body being torn apart seam by seam. And yet, to this day, he stood tall and proud. He'd never let it keep him down. It didn't end there though. Imperial continued shaking his head. After all, what kid has control of their quirk at that age, after just awakening it? And worse was the fact my quirk is almost always passively in effect to a small degree. So even after Recovery Girl healed me, my body began to break down over and over and over again. Even her quirk only goes so far. Even if I had a regeneration quirk on top, it wouldn't have saved me in the end. Luckily for me, there's a certain awesome hero out there who has the ability to negate quirks with his own. I'm not gonna tell you guys who he is, cause he prefers not to have eyes on him, but both him and Recovery Girl saved my life. I spent 3 months with them both at UA as a toddler then, and those 3 months were hellish, spent training and bulking up my body constantly. And that wasn't just to handle using my quirk, that was just so I could survive the passive effect of my quirk, not even using it. Honestly, Jin was kind of horrified to know someone he held in such high esteem had to go through so much pain just to survive without even using his quirk as a child. But despite the horror he felt about it, it always made his respect for Imperial soar high into the sky each time he watched this. And he watched it a lot. It was his main source of inspiration and motivation after all. It was a full 3 years before I'd trained myself up enough to be able to go home. Because after those 3 months, it was time spent making sure I could control my quirk and not hurt anybody else. Imperial sighed looking up to the sky. 3 years of constant pain where I barely ever saw my mom or my brother. And the pain didn't even stop then when I got to go home. That was just the point where it was deemed I could endure. Imperial laughed and stood up, eyes coming back down from the sky to look at the camera, and he smirked. So am I lucky? Yes, I'm lucky I survived at Awakening. I was lucky I was near UA. I was lucky my first mentor could keep my quirk suppressed whenever it got out from under me and I lost control. But I'm not lucky to have it just because it's power. I hate this fucking quirk. Despite the venomous words he spouted about his quirk, Imperial merely continued smirking. But it's my quirk and my life. Sure, I could sit around and feel sorry for myself and probably end up killing myself, and a lot of others, while pitying myself when I eventually couldn't control it anymore. But I didn't. You know why? Because just 'cause it sucked is no excuse for me to waste my life. I might never have wanted this quirk, might hate it more than anything else, but it's mine, and I'll rule over it, not the other way around. So I throw myself into building myself up day in and day out. That's what it means to take accountability for myself and be a man. As he finished, Kano's fist erupted with a bright blinding white light as a vibrating rippling bubble of power burst into existence around it. He really was so damn cool. He remembered being struck speechless as he watched it. Remembered the shame that flowed through him when that young boy, only 12 years old at the time, talked about his responsibility as a man and how wallowing in his own self-pity wouldn't help him. That time was still a bit of a blur to him, but he paused the video and scrolled down to the comments below the video. And there, highlighted at the top, was a comment of his own, under Broseph Life. Of course at the time his username had been totally different and he'd changed it later, but the comment remained regardless. It was full of quite a few misspelt words, horrible punctuation and cusses that he really shouldn't have been using when trying to talk to a young boy at the time. And he'd basically demanded what he was supposed to do about his quirk and went into detail about his problems, about how he could never be sure he was the real Jin Bubegawara. Imperial's response had been simple. Of course you're the real one. Not only you, but all of you and your clones made from your quirk were real. They're all you. If they think and feel, then that's proof enough, isn't it? It seems like your clones snapped at you in the end, because you abused them. In that case, think about it yourself. What would you have done if someone just forced you to do everything for them while laying on their ass? The response on the tip of his tongue at the time had been, I'd smash his fucking head in. But he hadn't said it aloud or replied with it, because he'd realized the mistake all along. It wasn't just him that was Jin. They the exact same as him. They were all Jin. It wasn't really anything profound that was said to him, but it had struck him nonetheless. And it was the turning point in his life, where he learned to take accountability for himself. Where he learned, yeah, his life fucking sucked, so what was he going to about it? That was his starting point. It was where he forced himself to stop being afraid of his quirk and faced it head on. Where he turned himself in for the crimes he committed and luckily got away with just doing a ton of community service because in the end he hadn't hurt anyone. Where he learned from others, followed advice from Imperial and followed him on his lifestyle of bettering himself. And after a lot of work, got a great job at a local gym just over 1.5 years ago after getting permission to use his quirk as long as it was inside a certain range, like a single building. At first, he was only hired as a simple janitor. But then, he became the single janitor of the entire place and was paid as much as 3 janitors. And then after he gave some advice to some people working out, the owner of the gym, a massive fitness buff, saw the effort he'd made following Kano on his own lifestyle. And he got hired as a personal trainer as well after getting some personal training himself. And thanks to his quirk, he could help as many people at the gym as needed while keeping it clean as a whistle. And was being paid the same amount as 5 personal trainers. Granted, he did a lot more work than 5 personal trainers, but it was fine. And that was how he was currently making 45 million yen a year now, and why he now had his own 3-bedroom apartment, nothing like the dingy dives he was used to crawling around in before. And it was all thanks to Imperial, his life guru. Thanks again. Jin clapped his hands together and bowed his head to the image of Imperial on the video on the screen of his PC. Imperial Army for life. He chanted, before closing it down and grabbing his clothes for the day. His Imperial Army tank top. His Imperial Army training shorts. His Imperial Army wristbands and more. He owned a lot of Imperial's merch and was proud of it. He even directed anyone who thought his snazzy Imperial Army clothing was awesome towards Imperial's merch stores online. And with that, he headed for a shower to get cleaned and ready for the day while his clone made breakfast. The ringing alarm from her flip phone woke Achako at flat on 6 in the morning. The rosy-cheeked girl awoke with a groan, her eyes feeling heavy. Her tummy rumbled with desire for sustenance. But she ignored it. She was tempted to lay there for a bit until she fully awoke. But a small happy-sounding yip forced her to roll over in her bed and peer down. There, sitting up in a small clothing basket, was her newest roommate, Machi. Kano in the end had no issue with letting her name the dog after her favorite food, and had left the puppy with her last night after they drove down to the vet down the road with the cute little puppy. He'd left her to it around 8 p.m. last night and returned home. But considering they had a half day yesterday, he was there for quite a while. It was weird having a boy in her house for so long. But at the same time, he was kind of easy to deal with. So it hadn't really been a bother. Though he needed to stop flashing his money or else he was going to give her a heart attack. She'd went to the bathroom to change out of her uniform, only to come back to find him telling her he'd ordered them some food from a takeaway place. He'd ordered a massive pizza, alongside a kebab because of course he'd get one, and a munchie box which was apparently just a massive buffet-like box of different types of food from the takeaway place. That boy could seriously eat. What was with him and all the non-Japanese food though? Shaking her head, she got up out of her bed, ignoring the cold wood floor as she crouched down to pet Machi. "Hiya boy, how are ye?" She beamed at the little puppy who in return excitedly tried to nip at her fingers. But since she was wearing her sleeping gloves to stop her quirk from being activated during the night when she was asleep, she couldn't feel it at all. "Nice try," she teased, wiggling her gloved finger with his tiny jaw wrapped around it. At Kano's advice last night, she'd put a little blanket inside her washing basket and had Machi sleep in it during the night just so he didn't go wandering around and hurt himself. Picking the little pup up, she plopped him down on the wooden floor and let him have a wander around, watching with an amused smile as he stumbled his way around happily. While he did that, she went and poured herself a glass of water. She'd make some coffee to wake herself up, but she didn't drink coffee. Coffee was way too expensive for her to just casually have for drinking. After downing the glass of water, she went and brushed her teeth and washed her face in the bathroom before going on to fix her bed and get ready for the day. She quickly tried running a brush through her messy bed hair, but it didn't really do much. Her hair had always been weird and there wasn't much she could do about it. She'd been pretty self-conscious about it growing up actually. It wasn't like the luscious bouncy long hair other girls tended to have, but just a weirdly messy and misshapen bob with odd bangs that hung to her chin. Oh well, she shrugged. She might have been able to do something about it if she went to a salon or something or had some really expensive hair care products, but she'd never waste money on something so silly. "Now, what to do about you little man?" Achako mused, turning her attention to Machi who was currently in the process of gnawing at one of the toys Kano bought him yesterday, a long knotted rope thing. Should she feed him? No wait. She paused and shook her head. Didn't Kano tell her feeding a dog then walking them could give them bloat or something like that, which could get really bad if not paid attention to? Alright, walk first then. Luckily for Achako, by the vet's estimation Machi was estimated to be between 2 and 3 months old, and already had some basic house training. Enough to know at least that doing the toilet in the house was bad and only to do it if he couldn't hold it, and that was what the mats bought and laid down by Kano as well had been for. But Machi's such a smart boy and hadn't done it in the house at all, and waited until she took him a little walk in his cute little harness and retractable leash around the block. He was such a cute, curious little guy as well, stopping to sniff at everything they passed by from a lamppost to a stone to a bit of grass. He's so adorable. Achako squealed internally as she led him back up to her apartment. Once back inside she took his harness and leash off, before beginning to set out his breakfast. Multiple bowls, 4 for food and 1 for water. They weren't sure what food he would prefer so Kano being Kano had bought a lot. As in, 3 different types of dog food, in 5 different flavors. In jelly, in gravy and in loaf. And that wasn't counting the dry food, or the bunch of different treats Kano had gotten the little puppy. As she set the literal 5 bowls down for the little puppy, she couldn't help but shake her head at the ludicrousness of it all. This puppy is gonna be eating better than me. She pouted inwardly. Man, being a dog sure was easy. Well, as long as you had a doting owner like Kano at least. I pity the girl that marries that guy. She laughed to herself, especially if they had a daughter in the future. The first boy that showed any interest in her was going to get threatened with having an earthquake shoved down his throat. Well, she supposed there was a lot worse things to have in a guy than him being incredibly doting despite being an overly muscular macho man behemoth. Right. Achako shook her head and put that out of mind for the moment and bounced to her feet as Machi began sniffing around the food. Time to get some morning exercises in. She cheered, pumping her fist into the air. Nothing intensive, just some basic stretches to get nice and limber for later. She didn't want to get her uniform all sweaty after all. Washing clothes cost money after all. Luckily she hadn't put her leggings on yet though. She definitely would be though. Especially since she knew that pervert Maita was going to be around. She wasn't going to give that little weirdo even the slightest chance of perving on her. Even if he was far more likely to try and perv on some of the other girls in her class, like that Yaoyorozu girl or the pink-skinned girl. Mina, they were way prettier than her after all. She probably didn't have to worry too much after Kano had threatening to smoosh him with his quirk, but one couldn't be too careful around creepy little perverts like that. And so while Machai was testing out the food she'd put down for him, Ochako got down to some basic exercises, stretching out her legs and arms and such before doing some calf raises and squats, and then through a few other calisthenics. Nothing too extensive and not even that many of them, because she wasn't sure how intense today was going to be at UA and as such couldn't afford to tire herself out, but it got the blood pumping a bit. She usually went out jogging in the mornings as well. Had made it an ingrained habit while getting ready for the UA entrance exam. But yes, she didn't want to tire herself out at all. She needed to apply herself at 120% during her classes. Just as she was finishing up, there was a knock at her door, making Ochako blink. She cocked her head to the side in confusion. That couldn't be Kano already. Surely not. It was only 7:30 in the morning. But as he seemed to have a habit of doing, Kano defied her expectations. And it was him. "Why are you here so early?" she asked when she opened the door and found him standing on the other side already dressed in his UA uniform, blazer and all, though like yesterday he'd forgone the tie and left his top couple of buttons undone. And what the heck is that? The class number 1 had a box that looked like a pizza box almost held in one hand above his shoulder. "It's breakfast. What else, Machai girl?" He grinned at her boyishly. "It's a fry-up. I know this place not far from here. Some guy who used to live in Scotland in his youth and came back to open a restaurant here. He makes British food. Real good stuff, really filling." "What is with you and the non-Japanese food?" She snorted. "Are you some kind of foreigner food otaku or something?" He gaped at her. An otaku." He repeated slowly. "Do I look like an otaku?" He asked her disbelievingly and lifted his other arm to curl his bicep. "Having big muscles doesn't at all disqualify you from being an otaku, Kano-kun. That's just a good disguise." Ochako rolled her eyes. "Besides, you forget that I follow your Wetube account now and I saw a ton of videos of you playing video games and a lot of them were foreign too. I like video games, and Japanese games suck for the most." He pouted at her. "Foreign stuff just tends to be more dense in calories and I need a lot more than usual because of my body and stuff." "If you say so," Ochako shrugged. It did smell good, she had to admit. "But," she frowned, "you're not trying to butter me up or something, are you?" She felt kind of sleazy asking such a thing when he really had been nothing but nice to her. But, between him flirting with her the first time they met, calling her cute, flashing his money and the like, and well, the comments Minda made, it could make a girl wonder. She might have been poor, but she wasn't some charity case. If nothing else, she had pride in that and would draw the law in the sand early and make it known she wasn't some shallow girl that would do anything for money. "What are you talking about?" Kano's face screwed up in confusion, giving her an odd look. "Butter you up for what?" "If it's about Machai, this isn't a bribe to take care of him or anything. I just figured you might have found yourself a little busier than usual with him around and not gotten to have breakfast yet, so I figured I'd bring it in with me and we can both eat at the same time." He then raised an eyebrow at her. "Unless you want me to bribe you to take care of him?" he asked, still looking utterly confused. She felt her cheeks heat up. No. Nothing like that." She quickly sputtered out, waving her arms quickly to keep his attention off of her face. "It just felt a bit weird cause you were flashing about a lot of money with buying stuff for Machai. And then that big food delivery last night. And now this." "Oh." Kano blinked, before shrugging. Nah, nothing like that. I just wanted to make sure Machai would have everything he needs and make taking care of him easier for you since he'd be staying with you and I couldn't be around constantly. And like I said, I eat a lot and I wasn't exactly gonna order a ton of food for myself. And get none for you. That's just rude and being a greedy dick." She felt so embarrassed right now. He was just a good-natured idiot, at least to anyone who wasn't named Bakugo. "Right. Cool. Cool. Ochako replied, before coughing. "Right, anyway, come on in and see Machai." She hurriedly waved him inside and changed the topic. God, she was such an idiot sometimes.